Did I read it wrong? Oh. Mark, do they have Rochester have a warrant? 21, right? No. Yeah. Sure. Great quick synopsis. That's exactly what I want. That's what it's perfect. Don't mess up. I agree. There's minor changes, but I'll go.
Yeah, I don't understand the whole thing.
Well, that's
6 new definitions.
there's a reason for that. Well,
Configured as much. So I stay away from it.
Okay, I have 6:30, so we'll start. I'd like to call the Town of Rochester Planning Board Workshop Meeting to order. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Will the attendance please? Roll call.
Grasso,
Here.
Member Maloney. Member Lindstrom,
Absent.
Member Jones.
Here.
Member Graham.
Here.
Member Jarvis.
Here.
Member Pinsky.
Here.
Member alternate Duda.
Here.
Additionally, we have Megan Stone from CPL, as well as Greg Bolder from CPL, our engineer for the planning board. And Dave Gordon from Gordon Svensson is here, our attorney for the planning board, and Dave Church, our town planner. Okay, board, this is our time. We've been looking for this for a long time. No public comment tonight. It is our opportunity to put our seatbelts on and get some work done. So I've asked you to review the application 2021-516, which is for DeJager Realty located at Lucas Avenue. Nadine is here to answer any and all questions we have. Greg and Megan are here to take notes and answer any questions we may have in regards to our conditions and outstanding items. I don't know about anybody else, but I have 12 pages worth of stuff on this. So we can go through this and identify items as we go and have conversations as we go. Not looking for necessarily a back and forth. We have Dave, who's reviewed a lot of items, and Megan and Greg, who've reviewed all the engineering items. So if we're ready, we'll get started. Okay, all right. So first thing I have is I'm going to start in no specific order, and we'll just go. If you guys have it on your list, check it off so we don't have to talk about it again. Ulster County Department of Health. We are requiring that they are going to install one well on the project site, one test well for every 10 lots, and monitor at least one neighboring well, or installation of the second well on site. We will yield testing of a newly installed well on the project site and continuous pumping until stabilized drawdown has continued for 6 hours when pumped at 1.5 times the design rate. Thirdly, monitor the neighboring wells during drawdown testing within 1,000 feet of the development area. Fourth, we will do collection and testing for the water accordance with New York State Department of Health for individual well water supply, fact sheet number 3, and all results shall be submitted to the Department of Health for review as part of their approval and denial of the project. That's what I have on well water supply. Did I cover it all?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Moving on. Here we go. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and Stormwater. The SWIP needs to be accepted by the town engineer. Greg, you've reviewed the SWIP.
Yeah.
Made comments on the SWIP. It will need your final approval. Okay. Inspection and restoration surety bond amount set into the town zoning and subdivision code. That would be for inspection and restoration in the event we need it for a bond. Maintenance and surety bond amount set as part of the project approval in accordance with Town of Rochester zoning and subdivision code. HOA acceptance, including inspections and maintenance protocols for stormwater management practices. And the filing of a notification of intent with the DEC to obtain coverage under GP 020001. Questions on all those items? Yes.
HOA inspections, who's doing the inspections?
I said HOA acceptance.
Check on these inspections.
Yep, inclusive of inspections and maintenance procedures. So we have, with our HOA, we have a road maintenance agreement and we have a conservation easement. So it will be required that those two items, a part of the HOA, will be inspected and maintained.
Okay.
Dave, am I missing anything on the HOA portion of coverage?
No, we don't yet have, we don't have a HOA document. I'm not sure if that's what you want to be, looking at, but we have those two easements.
Yep.
We don't have like bylaws or anything like that.
Correct. Okay, which we'll get to that in a second. That's yes.
Would be helpful if you distributed look at your list and the members.
This is just my list. I'm sure you have a list also. No, I didn't. This is the list that I made, not necessarily a list that I'm sure everybody has their own check sheet. Yeah.
Mark,
Yep.
You're going section by section.
Yep.
You covered some of the items I have.
Good.
1 or 2 that you didn't have. Referring to the stuff that you just mentioned, so.
In regards to DEC?
Well, in regards to some of the things you mentioned.
Okay.
Bonds,
Sure. Go ahead.
stormwater.
So I have bonds, I have stormwater. This was just the DEC comment. So anything that DEC needed to be involved in is where I'm at
So
right
I'll
now.
wait till you get to the stormwater. and
Okay.
bonds.
Sure. New York State DEC and Army Corps of Engineer for a wetlands disturbance nationwide permit, number 29, subject to any and all requirements by DEC and Army Corps of Engineer related to the disturbance of streams, wetlands, wetland buffers, including during and after construction related to maintenance and protection of the same. That's the Army Corps of Engineers portion of the DEC permit. Anything more on DEC and Army Corps? I'm gonna keep going. Ulster County Department of Public Works to access a construction permit for the road coming off of the turnpike. Okay, on behalf of the planning board, bonds, Rick, here we go. Restoration, construction, and maintenance surety bonds set as part of the project approval in accordance with the Town of Rochester zoning and subdivision code for any and all shared service items such as roadway, signage, stormwater, and utilities.
That covers what I have.
Okay, here we go. Fees to be paid to the Town of Rochester. Nadine, I hope you're keeping up. I'm sorry, I didn't even ask how you doing today.
Good.
Okay. Plans, outstanding map requirements for the planning board. Survey map, the lot line dimensions and descriptions provided by licensed surveyor upon confirmation from the board accepting layout as submitted. The final map shall be amended as needed to include all information, details, and notations to comply with the involved agency's requirement as outlined above. Now I'm going to HOA. HOA, general document notations, conservation area protection, maintenance and restrictions, what they can and cannot do, the do's and don'ts. This includes sanitary easement, posting of signage, soil disturbance restrictions, tree clearing restrictions, building restrictions, motor vehicle restrictions. For the drainage easement areas of protections, the do's and don'ts, I have signs, soil, tree clearing, building, and motor vehicle.
Want me to comment?
Yes, I'm ready.
And so, in the HOA document, a couple things. The last one that we have on file is dated 11/1/22.
Yep.
So some of the stuff that's in, some of the things you asked for are in there,
Correct.
the restrictions. So I have some additional restrictions that weren't in there.
Go ahead.
So, I'm gonna go through, I have about 10 comments on the
Sure.
HOA. On page 1 of the HOA and on other pages, it refers to the HOA agreement that I read refers to 14 lots. It should be changed to 10 lots as per
Agreed.
all the agreements.
Dave, that'll need to be a red line, 14 to 10, page
I'm
1.
confused though, Rick, there is no HOA agreement that we've got. We've got two easements that, one of which is an exhibit to the other.
Do we have an HOA agreement in our
whatever this is. I'm
I
calling
think
it-
there's a, like,
That's
see,
the-
that's the RMA,
It's the what?
the road maintenance easement.
And that's the one I was looking at, Rick, too. So if you guys type it in your computer,
And the conservation easement was a exhibit to that. But we don't have an HOA.
dated
Well, I
11.
decided we.
So we need the HOA.
Yeah.
We need to see that, and the board needs to see it.
Yeah. there's no
So I'm
problem.
just assuming that whatever, that any of the things that are in this road maintenance would wind up in the
So
HOA.
to get everybody on the same page, dated 2023-04-25,
Say that again slowly, please.
2023-04-25
Is the HOA?
is the document that you're reading, 11-1-22.
All right, so let me continue.
Yep, go ahead.
Well, if we don't, if this is not the HOA, and I assume that like to keep referring to things that you would see in an HOA. On page 4, it refers to a 50-foot roadway easement. The roadway itself should be 18 feet, so I don't know whether we want to.
So we got a comment back from the fire, and they are requesting that to be a 20-foot width road for New York State Fire Code.
But I think what you said was a 50-foot roadway easement. So it is a 50-foot roadway easement.
But the road will be
The road itself,
26.
right, is it in that, correct?
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's typically what it is, but I,
So the access point, Rick, will be 50 feet wide, but the road, currently they have an 18. We are asking for it to be 20 per New York State Code.
Where does it say that the HOA, or, all right, so that's not the HOA, even though it refers to
Yep.
the HOA. So somewhere, I can only do,
So she's agreeing with you that that's
Okay.
not,
where does it say the HOA is responsible for the maintenance of the SWIP related structures? So that needs to be in whatever HOA agreement is eventually delivered to us. Also in the HOA agreement, there has to be agreement that there'll be an annual reporting required to the building department, making sure that the maintenance portion of the SWIP, which is page whatever of 200 pages, that the maintenance agreement or the maintenance requirements in that SWIP have been complied with, and that annual reporting needs to be delivered to the building department.
Rick, excuse me, I think a lot of these should be conditions on subdivision approval.
Okay.
And that's probably a more effective way to.
So I can wait and handle.
Well, I'm not,
I like that idea because Megan is keeping notes as she's drawing up the document for the conditions of approval. So
Okay.
these are items that not only I have, but other board members, we can just keep going with that. Okay.
I have an extra copy of it.
yeah, if we can get copies.
Yeah,
all day.
we'll send it, absolutely.
All right, so make the, one of the.
I'm with you. Go ahead. I got it.
You need to include words to the effect that no homeowner shall increase the amount of runoff from their property in excess of that already provided for the SWIP.
Yep.
So I don't know what's been provided in terms of gutters or anything else, that, you know, groundwater. But the SWIP has a particular number of what's there already and what needs to be dealt with as a result of either the cutting of trees or solid surface. So no homeowner can make any changes to their property that increases the amount of runoff. Whether that's a condition of approval or that's part of the HOA as one of the prohibitions, I don't
And
know.
part of the SWIP.
Well, it's in the SWIP.
Well, but that's, the SWIP would be the protection on the front end. We would want something for the after homes are completed as well.
The next one,
But Rick, you have to be careful with that, because by putting a statement like that they can't increase the runoff, that precludes anyone from putting an addition on their existing home, because that would increase the runoff through roof drainage and gutters.
I don't know how to handle that except to say.
I don't know either, that's why.
Well, and the county's comments came back that they appreciate that we are going to look into this and potentially have accessory dwellings as well. So granted, Nadine, we'll have to work on somehow for that runoff of,
well, what we should do is we could provide that it's mitigated, right? I mean, if you're gonna do something that'll increase runoff, you'll have to add to the mitigation, the SWIP somehow to contain the runoff.
Right, so SWIPs can be amended.
yep,
Correct.
Say somebody's looking to disturb more area than is shown, and they can show that they're also mitigating the impacts of the runoff, treating it, dissipating, however it can be reviewed and revised. We have left ample area for the yards. We have large footprints for the buildings. That's not to say that they may change the size or the shape or the layout somewhat, but, well, for the most part, it's, really pretty inclusive. But again, it could be amended, and any changes from what is accepted would need to be reviewed.
Rick, can I add to your comment one more time on infrastructure? We originally talked about, and this is number one on my list, the infrastructure build out should be completed in one phase. People have forgotten. Yeah.
That would be a condition of approval.
Yeah, so infrastructure, Megan, would be all in one shot.
Lot coverage is referenced on the plan by lot.
Yeah, we have a table, I believe it's on sheet 4. So that table goes for every lot for, the coverage in acreage and then the percent of the lot. So that is included.
And and you're saying that those are,
It's mostly
conservative
includes-
enough that it shouldn't come up.
Yeah, it
Yes.
includes the driveways and the house sites, which we basically just show a rectangle. And I forget what the square footage is, but I want to say it's like 2,400 square feet, something like that. So it's substantial. And, yeah, we have a limit of disturbance indicated also on sheet 11. I don't think, I mean, we took out what the disturbances for the road and the infrastructure for phase 1, but pretty much the lots, and we could do per lot also. But, we left ample room also for some, not on all sites, but on some sites for, yard, obviously the septic, the driveway road
Green
construction is
space.
needed. So, we don't expect, more clearing than what's already indicated.
But that would also change if one of the potential owners wanted to put a detached ADU on there
Right.
as well.
Okay, Rick, keep going.
Okay, and remember, I have all of the.
Yep.
Regards to, we can get to those later.
Yep. This is just HOA right now, right?
HOA/roadway.
Yeah, good.
Right. So I don't see any place in part of our discussion about the legality of using Peninsula Lane. You confirmed that you could have an ingress at that end of the property, that the residents are allowed to use that particular lane. I don't see anywhere in any of the documents I've looked at how there's going to be an allocation for road maintenance between the new property and the Hitch Road and the old property, namely Peninsula Lane. Presumably, everybody on Peninsula Lane is going to contribute towards the maintenance of that entire lane.
Right, so
I don't
currently-
know that is.
Hang on, so currently, this landowner is paying their portion of maintaining Peninsula Lane because they have access to it today. That's already in existence. So Nadine, the question to you is as these lots get split,
Yeah, so some clarification, it's already in the road maintenance agreement set aside for Peninsula Lane, that once this property gets subdivided, that all those properties have the right to use it, and they will all contribute to the road maintenance agreement. It's already in that road maintenance agreement,
Okay, so the applicant is now paying something.
right?
For-
Their one lot share or whatever.
Right.
So I
To
don't.
clarify,
that. I know that that's what exists.
it exists,
Okay.
but there is nothing that it's not gonna, the new roadway or this site is not gonna require everyone else to contribute, because technically those properties don't have frontage or access or rights to use this new private road.
Right.
So they won't have to contribute to any maintenance agreement for this road.
the current Peninsula Lane owners won't be participating in Rio Vista, but Rio Vista will be paying for Peninsula.
So what I read in the document, it refers to everybody on that roadway paying 1/14, and now it's 1/10 or whatever's necessary.
Correct.
Shouldn't it be changed to say, in addition to that, they'll pay something for Peninsula Lane?
It's a separate road maintenance agreement. Peninsula Lane is a separate road maintenance agreement that these already have to pay onto.
Okay, so Dave, I need you to review
Legally,
that.
you could tell me, but I mean, it's already in.
You want to review
Yeah,
it?
so I need you to review the current road maintenance agreement in Peninsula. Well, it's in the file.
submitted.
Okay,
The current Peninsula Road
Yeah.
maintenance agreement. And the current plan for Rio Vista Lane, because Rio Vista residents should be paying a portion of the peninsula, but not vice versa.
right, well,
Peninsula should.
How would we
Well-
monitor that?
We don't.
No, that.
They have a road
that
maintenance agreement in
document
place.
Dated, once this gets filed, but that's its own document. So if this goes into 10 lots, 14 lots, 100 lots, all those lots now get that update.
Is the
that-
entity that will be contributing to Peninsula Lane called DeJager Realty LLC? We need to name for the future who that entity is.
No, all these individual lot owners
will be
will be responsible.
Right,
Pay into
but
that.
the answer is yes, because the Jager Realty LLC, when this subdivision gets approved, is going to be the landowner for each of these 10 lots until they're
Well,
sold.
right. However, that,
So that's
until
why,
they're sold.
I'm with you. So I need you to review both of those road maintenance agreements to ensure that Rio Vista is going to be paying for Peninsula. Currently, Peninsula is at 1/14, I'm throwing a number out. And it's gonna need to be 1/24.
or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that number is. Okay, keep going,
My
Rick.
next item is nowhere, well, this has to do with conservation easement. I'll wait till I get to that.
Yep, not there yet.
The next one's conservation easement.
I have one more on HOA. The road shall not be asphalted, it will be maintained. Road and driveways will not be paved.
Yeah,
Right.
somewhere it says that it won't be, it'll be with.
Didn't you propose that?
It is proposed to be built out in gravel.
Right.
The stormwater pollution prevention plan looks at it as impervious areas.
Yep.
So there shouldn't be a restriction that it gets paved for any pavement in the future.
Okay, I thought you had that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Was there something that we talked about with salting of the road or something?
We did say in the road maintenance agreement.
Yep.
It does talk about, that the HOA would be responsible for maintenance of the road, spreading salt and all that.
Okay, that's what I
We had
remember.
talked about that there be no salt allowed to be used on the road, which is not realistic. But a mixture of salt and sand in order to preserve the nature of the conservation area.
Yeah.
Similar to what the town does on our
Is there
roads.
language for that?
Greg?
For, road salt mix
Yeah,
and salt mix?
Because I
Yeah,
believe there's
I don't
something in the
know.
conservation now with restricting certain things and
yeah, it's one,
pesticides, and I think there might be something in there
I
already.
think it's
I haven't read it
125.
in like a year, so, but I remember reading
I
something.
know,
Greg, write this down. 125-28B, I believe, is the best practice management for lot plans. They don't hold it out.
so we could just put
Can I-
something in
can I
there, which gives best practice with salt.
Yeah, maybe a best practice for that. I think it's 125-28B. Okay, keep going, Rick.
Everything else I have to do with conditions of approval for conservation easement, so I'll wait.
Sorry.
Kind from, supporting, member, DOT has a standard because it makes.
Just to let the,
Dude, he has a standard, okay. Thank you.
For what they putting on town and county roads, you mean?
yes,
Okay, understood. Thank you.
I don't know when I can say. that.
Yeah, I understand. Anne Marie, you have something on
No, I'm
roads?
good. I was gonna hop on what she was saying.
Okay.
Can I also just
Sure.
one other thing, just because of my mining experience. What has what has been happening with most towns is they are going away. It's either all salt or all sand. They're trying,
Getting rid of the mix?
a lot of towns are complaining that the sand is too messy and they have to clean it up at the end of the year, so.
Okay.
It's in flux.
With as much rain as we had this year, that's crazy.
Oh, no.
But okay, in addition to the HOA, I have roadway maintenance, stormwater maintenance, shared driveway maintenance, and then lighting. We didn't talk about lighting. So in the HOA, forced lighting, downward facing, dark sky compliant,
Well, we agreed to some lighting for the roadway, which I think is.
No
fine.
lighting on the roadway.
right, no lighting on the roadway,
We want the houses to observe. the
dark sky
distance.
compliance.
That needs to be in the HOA.
Yep.
Great.
What else I have?
You want me to jump ahead?
Go ahead, yep.
All right, so on the conservation easement, and I'm gonna, some of these are just additions or corrections to what I read. Section 3D, it says, it should say, with the, no tree shall be planted, should be cleared in the conservation easement area that are over a certain diameter.
Which we, on
So
that
it's
topic, we just had a tree plan submitted from the surveyor,
Yes.
which is loaded to the file. It was, done by,
It was done by John Post,
Yep.
and so we did the overlay, so that we can see where that is. I know it's really specific to the septic on lot 3.
Yep.
So we did shift it slightly, to avoid, and then we, adjusted some of the limited disturbance there. So, but that has been added to the survey. We had like 4 outstanding planning notes. One was the road name, one was the tree survey, one was the lot. You know, so we've been obviously whittling down on those, and we finally got the tree survey overlaid on the plan.
which we asked for. So that's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're getting it done before this.
And
Okay, great.
once, if there's anything, just so you know, anything that we can incorporate note-wise on the plans, we do have comments from a few agencies. We're gonna, so that we can, for the next, I don't know, it'll be next week's meeting.
No.
But by the next meeting, we will submit a full, new set, which obviously will still have conditions, but just.
You don't want to see next week's agenda. Okay, Rick, go
A
ahead.
list of prohibitions for conservation easement.
Yep.
There's no mention in there of trapping. There's mention of hunting. I just think we should be specific about no setting traps or trapping. We've used that in some other verbiage in some other projects. We should also add a prohibition section that says no use of any 4-wheel vehicles, gas or electric, or off-road gas or electric vehicles, or gas or electric motorbikes. So the prohibition.
In the conservation
In
easement.
the conservation. easement. No use of.
Oh, hang on that topic. We need the signs for the conservation.
No use of construction vehicles in the conservation easement area except for the maintenance of that conservation.
Yep.
For whatever reason you have to get in. And there's section 4F of the conservation easement, doc. It says community recreation could be established on the Rondell, and it talks about creating a recreation area that includes,
Right, because that lot 3 septic is down, that we'd save that for conservation.
well, I guess, no, what they're saying is that the conservation easement goes on the Rondell.
Yep.
But they're calling out an exception and saying that they will be, or they could put community recreation in the form of canoe or kayak,
Sure.
appurtenances, whatever.
Yeah,
Which
you
is
should provide
okay.
access and picnic tables,
Yep.
that kind of things in that
So I just
area.
want to say, I'd like to see something added that, all of whatever they're doing down there has to be done after securing appropriate permits, appropriate permitting entity, including but not limited to the DEP and the
Yeah.
town board.
Definitely,
All right,
Yep.
so not quibbling with being able to do it, it's just something that says definitively they have to. get
appropriate permits, yeah.
Approvals. So on. Add a section that says that no lot bordering on the Mondale may use no lot, individual lot, and unilaterally create any permanent or temporary structures on the Mondale. But lot 3 does border on the Mondale.
So
It
that-
does
can you
not.
read-
It does not.
No, lot 3 is definitely not.
Thank you.
Lot 3 is probably over 200 feet away from the edge of the rondo.
You're right.
Yeah.
What about conservation area?
Mhm.
They can't build in the conservation area. They don't own it. The HOA owns that. The HOA owns that, not a lot owner. That Rick's talking about a lot owner.
And we said the HOA can put in.
The HOA can,
Right, it's just, it has to be approved by the.
correct.
Right, yep.
That's all I have on conservation easement document. And the rest of what I have. is-
Rick, I just want to clarify something. You were talking about putting in like picnic tables and things like that. Is that only for the HOA or was that general public?
No, only for, the
Landowners.
HOA, yeah. As part of their common use open space.
There is one more item, and I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that that the HOA could do something on around that. You do refer in the conservation easement that recreation facilities could be built in the rest of the conservation easement. I would like there to be condition of approval that they would have to come back to us to get approval for any recreation facilities done in the rest of the conservation easement, like hiking trail, picnic tables, any of those sorts of things.
So that's
There's
gonna,
nothing,
I'm just gonna say, I totally get if it was a permanent structure, but we do indicate hiking trails on our plan. We've talked about it, that locations might vary slightly. We have detail for what a trail surface would be. So,
so are the trails the only thing you have indicated in your?
the trails are already on. right,
but anything that
trail
needs a
would be-
permit to build, they gotta come back to us.
Tennis court.
Okay, so.
A pavilion, right.
Well,
I'm
if they
okay
come
with
back
that.
to us, they go to the building.
Well, no, because the HOA needs to require that any additional permittable item in the conservation easement comes back to us for approval.
Okay, as long as it says that somewhere.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Right.
you're good with that,
Permitted
Nadine?
item,
Okay,
yeah.
any permitted item.
Trails are already on here again, they might
Yeah, that-
move, they're not, they're.
That would be an adjustment to the site.
Right.
All right, as I said, I have a lot of.
The other
conditions
thing-
of- That's it on.
Conservation, okay, the only other thing I have for conservation, I think that's it. I had something about, native trees and shrubbery. Do you want to talk about that, Rick?
No, the only comment I made is they mentioned the trees that cannot be taken out over some size.
15 inch,
12
cover,
inches, I think,
15,
15?
15, and
Yeah.
so I indicated that it should either say 15 inches at the base or 12 inches at 4 feet breast height.
well, the zoning code has a very specific language on that, which is trees over 15 inch caliber. So,
But where do you measure it, at the base or 4 feet?
this is
Doesn't
the
say.
language I got right out of the code,
It doesn't
so,
say.
which I think typically is higher up on the tree, but.
Typically measurements are diameter at breast height.
15 inches at breast height is pretty,
Old tree.
well, it's a big tree,
Yeah.
It's a big tree, yeah.
4 feet.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the measurement
I'm okay.
for forest.
That's our current code. That's our
It's,
code.
and it's big out of the code. Yep.
Actually, I do have one more thing, I might as well bring it up
Yep.
right now. The board knows my concern about the HOA being in charge of maintaining and monitoring the conservation easement. There is a section in the conservation easement that indicates, I'll read it. It's section 125.23 H. It says, among other things, the town board must approve the form of all conservation easements. So in addition to us weighing in, the town board has to approve it.
So
And
hang on
Megan-
right there. So Megan, we're gonna need to make that a condition that the town board, reviews and approves the HOA as described. Go ahead, Rick.
And the conservation easement.
Yep, and and easement and road maintenance, they're gonna review that too. Stay with-
And may require the town,
And
the town board can require themselves to be designated as a party with rights to enforce such agreement, meaning the conservation easement. So in
Meaning
the
that-
past, the town has said they don't want to be involved in conservation easement. It's sort of ridiculous, but I think this board, I think we should support in the way of conditions that the applicant be required to go to the town board and that the town board become a co-grantee. Right now, the HOA is perceived to be or planned to be a grantee.
Grantor to the grantee.
Well, the grantor would be.
To Jaeger Realty.
The grantee would be.
The HOA.
HOA. And I'm suggesting that the town should be a co-grantee, and that this board get in front of the town board in some
The town
fashion.
doesn't want to hold it though. The
It's not
grant-
holding it, well,
That
they
is,
would not hold it exclusively, it would be a co-grantee between the HOA and the town.
Well, if they want to do that, that's fine. That's not the message that we've gotten thus far. What I would suggest is that if you take the whole thing and make it a condition of subdivision approval, then the town can enforce it, because it'll be like a rule that the building inspector can enforce, and so town can enforce it that way. It's
So you suggest,
That's not a bad idea.
were you suggesting it be in the conditions?
condition of subdivision approval. Thou shalt not do all these things that are forbidden in the
HOA.
well, no, I
Conservation.
want to get
Oh, in the conservation area.
Conservation easement. And that way, the building inspector can enforce it as a condition of approval. And it's the same thing as the town, but the town has so far indicated that they don't want to be the holders. When you're the grantee, that means somebody's granting you
You're in
something.
charge.
Well, you're the holder of the easement at that point. And that's the bridge we never got to with the town.
But doesn't that also carry implied liability?
Well, no, because if we're setting a
What do you mean
condition,
liability?
well, the town board would have to accept it. If they say we don't want it, then we would just condition.
The city is asking, the liability would come with being a grantee, that's the
Right.
answer.
What
to
liability?
yes.
Correct.
What Dave's describing is you make it as conditions of approval.
In the conservation.
No, in the.
Conditions of approval.
You take all these, you can't do, is like 15 of them now.
Yep.
And you make those, you put those in the conditions of approval.
Okay.
And you accomplish
Yeah,
essentially.
but the town can enforce it. It's just that so far we haven't seen that the town being interested in doing that.
That's a good loop.
Why don't we do that?
I agree.
That'd be.
And just as an aside, but we should get out in front of the town board in some fashion, letter in person, whatever, saying, this is crazy, you're urging for conservation easements, but you want to wipe your hands on it.
You don't want anything to do with
I
it.
don't get that.
Sure.
Really don't.
So you got that. All right, keep going, Rick.
That's it, until we get to
Okay.
other conditions.
Sure.
I like that suggestion.
Okay, so I have, before I go to on, does anybody have anything conservation or HOA rule bound? Sorian?
Yeah, so since I was absent previously, so the option, approaching rundown consultants, land conservancy is out, they don't take it.
It's their decision. They have the ability to use the HOA. That's the route they're taking.
So you never tried to approach them?
They don't have to.
Us as Peak Engineering did not know, and I don't know if the owner had not is doing that. So the way this is moving forward is that it's under the HOA. If that changes,
But
We
if
would
the board,
substitute that.
based on opinions and consultant consultancy, considers that HOA is unreliable,
It's our town code. We do not have the jurisdiction to tell them that they have to have a land conservancy taken. An HOA is a reliable source according to our town, whether we agree with it or not.
town code mentioned for private entity as well.
It's their choice. They want the HOA, they're gonna create one, that's on them. It's actually against their best interest because of tax reasons, but that's their prerogative. We have no jurisdiction. What else do you have on that topic? Okay, I have, anybody else on conservancy or HOA? Rick, you ready to go over,
One more.
Yep.
So how do you define the conservation area, for example, number?
this is an easement, not an area.
There's a big difference.
Big difference. This is conservation easement.
So, but map says conservation area,
What does?
it's a map.
so the areas will be defined meets and bounds, just basically with their own exceptions out of the deeds for the other property. And those deeds will be held in the HOA basically. Same as the road.
But it's, then it's
But it is
misleading.
labeled
Misleading.
conservation area.
Map
Yeah.
is saying conservation.
It is because it is an area. It's not just an easement. Nobody else owns it. It's an area in itself that's owned by the HOA. It's not that it's part of another lot. Like, so we have drainage easements because they are within people's personal lots. So there are easements over that area that people will have, they own the lot, but there's an easement over it. These are conservation areas that'll be subject to the conservation area easement
So
language.
maybe it should be labeled differently. Easement,
According to the zoning, they're labeled properly. The zoning calls them conservation areas because they're separate parcels they're not part of a parcel that's owned individually.
Right, so you're saying that an SPL that is gonna be provided by the county is not going to include this area as a part of that SPL?
Correct. None of the lots go over this area. So this is not an easement over somebody's personal lot. They're a lot in itself. They're a conservation area by themselves.
So these conservation areas are managed by virtue of an easement called conservation.
That's right.
And will be owned by the
I
HOA?
mean, colloquially, they're the same thing because it's the same area, but if you want to get into the strict meaning of the words, the area is an area and an easement is a series of commitments that the owners make to not do stuff.
In that area.
That's right. Actually, yeah. And
Do's and don'ts.
When that area is not yet defined in the easement document, but it has to be, because that makes it not only legal, it makes it permanent.
So that has to be part of the conservation easement.
Absolutely, and
Definitely.
right now there's a blank in it for it's one of the outstanding comments that blank needs to be filled in by a meets and bounds description of what the area is.
So what cases it's proper to call it conservation area?
It depends what the it is. What's the it you're talking about?
Sorry?
You said it's proper to call it, which it? If you want to know the exact, if you're talking about the land, it's probably the conservation area, and if you're talking about the restrictions, that's the easement.
That's clear.
Okay, but in my mind, there is a conservation area that some private entity, for example, somebody else can take a control of. Then there are certain definitions like a primary conservation area, secondary conservation area. Are you saying that that particular classification, primary, secondary, is not applied in this case?
In our code, there are two terms used, primary easement and secondary easement. And I couldn't define for you the
I don't
difference
know what
between
you're
them.
referring to.
But I think the important thing is the area is the proper thing to call it instead of the building plot. So this is the easement area, if you would. So you have an area which is going to be eased by the conservation easement.
Which is owned by the HOA.
Is it? I mean, that's not very legalese that I could
Easement
use.
is just the agreement to restrict usage of the area.
Okay, but then, so can we apply concept of primary and secondary to conservation easement? That's my question.
So, yeah, so I would say, reading the code, the way we went through it, that, everything in the conservation areas, the primary easements.
Okay,
And then we have a secondary, with the drainage easements over, say, the national wetland areas that are within other people's lots. So those are secondary in comparison, because those areas are actually owned by people, but there's easements over them for protection.
Again, I'm referring you to something that says, see as the conservation area analysis site, primary conservation area, federal, state, local wetland, endangered species habitat, streams and ponds, steep slopes 25% or greater, floodplain, other municipal priority.
Yes.
So I want to clearly understand that area number 2, is that primary or secondary? Because
Primary.
there's a, okay, then next question, how far is the house on lot number 3 from the border of the area? Is that 100 feet or less?
It is less from the border, but it is 100 feet or more from basically some of the sensitive areas, like, let's take the
But
stream.
our code specifically says from the border of the area, not whatever is inside.
I know that, I mean, because this is going way back, when Rick was chairperson, and after we had done the site visits and we were picking out the sites, and we were talking about what areas we were conserving and where the health sites were going. And even with the understanding that some of these home sites were within 100 feet of the edge of the conservation area, those areas were to be part of the conservation area. But there's other areas that were more restricted, and let's just take, for instance, the actual stream itself or the wetland itself. So there's, and I can just even point out, like on lot 2, any of the site improvements are more than 100 feet away from, say, the Army Corps wetlands. So the buffer from the sensitive area was maintained, but we increased the size of the areas within the conservation area just to conserve, more land.
Nadine, but it's unclear for me what form of basis we get to deviate from those 100 feet.
It was part of the whole board discussion. I mean, I remember
Discussion,
Sam
but
up
we
at the
still-
board
we-
and making
We're still
circles.
obligated by the court.
We agreed as a board,
To-
7-0 vote, that moving that item there would be more beneficial than the alternative. So we said that as a primary location, that was going to be more important than moving it somewhere else as secondary.
Because
So-
we did have the lots larger, and the idea was, I'm pretty sure Rick was one, but other people wanted the lots
Smaller,
smaller, which brought
exactly.
that edge of the conservation area in. But it was an actual request from the board, so we were accommodating the board with that request.
No, as that part I understand, but still we have to comply with that particular.
Understand, we have the ability to, we voted on that was something that we wanted to see. Because we wanted smaller building lots and more
I
conservation.
understand it. It's all
Yes.
concept and consideration. So are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, we've already done it.
Yeah, and basically, everything that's outlined in the guidelines for the conservation area is at the planning board's purview.
Okay, let's keep going. So list of conditions. You want,
I can start.
go ahead.
Okay, so we already talked about having a condition for everything regarding the don'ts that are in the conservation easement need to be made conditions. Next condition, no vehicles, this is my verbiage, you worded whatever way you feel is appropriate. No vehicle shall use the ingress egress between the proposed private road and the existing road known as Minnesota Lane during the period of construction.
Yep, we had that already.
Construction period, quote unquote.
No vehicle or no construction?
No
vehicle?
construction.
We had no
Okay, thank you.
Which we had that, I believe, Megan, on the last one. Yep. Go ahead, Rick.
Construction period includes the build out of all homes and all appurtenances, including but not limited to SWIP related structures, utilities, well, not including but not limited to, et cetera. So anything having to do with the build out, whether the build out is a year and a half, 2 years, no construction vehicles. I think we just need to, or during the construction period, I think we need to define construction period.
So we give it like a cutoff date, is what you're saying?
Well, no, because it could take them, depending on when we can give a condition of approval, they might not start with the road until April. Who knows?
And it could take.
Because they-
Or you might get them,
Could take
or they might want to start
5
right
years.
away because it's winter time and that's prime this year to cut. Who knows?
The next condition, all utilities will be provided. This one I need the applicant's input, because I wasn't sure. All utilities, electrical, they will be provided by way of the ingress of Lucas Turnpike in order to minimize any impact on the existing.
That's
That
correct.
one. Yes, agreed, yeah.
This one, no homeowner shall fill any swimming pool above or below ground that requires in excess of 2,000 gallons of water from their home water supply. The project site sits in an aquifer protection overlay, and it's necessary to provide for a limited use of that resource. In fact, it's very specific, around 2,000 gallons per day within a 30-day period. Pools must be filled using a third-party water resource. Normal topping off of the swimming pool due to evaporation can be done from the home water supply. So it's just, you can't have everybody who's gonna have a pool pumping 10,000 gallons out of the air.
Keep going. We're on board.
All construction during the time of construction, infrastructure, and home construction will be monitored by an outside resource designated by the planning board and referred to as the clerk of the works. This resource will assist the building department in monitoring the installation of all aspects of the SWIP, land clearing, and road construction. They will report periodically to the building department, and the building department will be responsible solely for the monitoring of house construction.
Hold on right
And
there.
I'm recommending that it be CPL.
Yeah, so Greg, is that something you guys offer?
It's not something that we typically do. I mean, we do for facilities that are being constructed for dedication to the town.
Okay.
But not for,
So could we seek for you guys to, on a, Rick, overstep if I'm short here, on a quarterly basis, a report of activity to be provided to the building inspector based on your review, which would be bonded or paid up front, where there would be money in escrow to hold for that.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that,
I'd like to just add real quick.
Yeah.
Because, and it doesn't have to be, but typically, the SWIP designer is usually part of the construction process and does the weekly inspections, or they hire another engineering firm to do the weekly inspections. So those weekly inspection reports are submitted to the building department, to the DEC, whoever else wants to be involved. I mean, that could be something that's.
Is that a
submitted.
service you guys are planning on doing for this?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely would.
So Rick, why don't we
It's
just make that a
very-
condition of,
but I wanted to go to our engineer.
Right, so I
We
was
can
gonna
add that,
say,
sure.
I was gonna say those reports could go, that way if there's anything that stands out or that there's other complaints, that they're in the loop, that they're not doing the actual weekly site visits.
Greg, is that something you guys would be okay with reviewing?
yes, and that is something that we do. We would do periodic inspections. That's something we typically do for MS4 community.
Sure.
So we're an MS4 community, we would be, the engineer of record does the SWIP inspections, but then we might do a
Additional or overview inspection.
monthly or bi-monthly kind of thing.
I'd like to see-
Just to check to make sure that they are doing what they're
I'm
supposed to.
good with that.
Yeah, let's define the term. I'd like it to be monthly, but every other month is fine.
And you know,
Or
it may,
submission of the
it may.
report.
The submission of the report,
construction,
right.
You know.
You might not have a
Construction
report because nothing's happening.
Right, I mean, well, we can still report.
Yes,
right,
they still have to have a
now.
month, yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, if construction's moving very quickly and there's a lot of things to see, they might wanna come out more, so it's hard to put a time frame on it, but I guess you could put a minimum, you know, a minimum of monthly or something.
60 days.
So I don't want to interfere with the building inspector doing the inspection of the buildings.
Right.
It's the infrastructure, roads, lighting, utilities.
Yeah, the
and
phase
SWIP
one
in
construction, yeah.
So, and to, Mark,
But-
you already,
Okay, I just want to clarify, so, because there are two different phases. One are the construction of the common facilities, the roads, the stormwater facilities and stuff such as that. But are you also saying that driveways during home?
No,
construction-
because the building inspector is responsible for carrying through our conditions of approval. So we would want this for a phase one process.
Okay, okay.
Phase two is the building inspector's
Okay,
responsibility.
that makes sense, because otherwise that could happen 10 years from now.
Right, that doesn't make sense.
We're retired by then.
So did you agree to monthly or bi-monthly?
monthly.
Monthly signatures.
Mark, you talked about bonding and I wasn't clear. And so I'm thinking the condition has to be real specific on the bonding.
Sure.
The bonding needs to be on all infrastructure.
So I'm showing bonding on stormwater.
Utilities.
Maintenance of stormwater, inspection and restoration of stormwater. Utilities,
Driveway?
driveways, roadways,
Well, yeah.
and drainage.
So typically the bonding would be what we've been referring to as the phase one construction.
Correct.
The installation of the roadway.
So really phase one, Rick.
utilities, and the
Phase one
utilities.
bonding.
Usually does not include, the driveways. It would likely include any culverts at the intersection of driveways with the roadway, because it's part of the drainage system.
Are you gonna, in your phase one, are you gonna stub those driveways in to put the culvert in and let the next landowner
In
do?
areas where there is a culvert,
Yep.
we always say that they should be in, otherwise it should actually be bonded, because
Right.
that's part of
The process, okay.
So, yeah.
I'm good with that too.
Right, so, they're not required at every single time, but,
I just focus, maybe, so, and roadways.
yeah, so, what we would do is, prepare some engineer estimate for us. I know we're not doing really a construction bond, but we would do, maybe the cost of construction, talk about some amount of disturbance, restoration, and we would submit those fees, what we estimate, and you would submit them to CPL for review to see if they cover everything and are reasonable, and then I think they would have to go to the town board for approval.
So my problem with the bond is that, in prior applications, we've set a bond and it never got posted. I think that the bond for this process should be set by us.
Well, they would set the number, we need to have it reviewed and then be approved.
So two options. So I agree with that, Nadine, with what you just said. You're gonna provide the invoices for the work to be completed.
Well, it's an engineer's estimate, so we go
Okay.
through the quantities.
Okay.
This many culverts, this is what it costs for installation. We typically use the DOT standard costs, even though it's not a prevailing rate job. So, right, so we do the quantities of the materials and have a unit price for them, whether it's a lump sum or linear foot or square foot or whatever. And that way, then when we submit it, CPL will look at it and say, is this reasonable? Did they include everything? Is this, right? Are these fees right?
So Greg, you'll peek at that, provide
Yes,
us
and that's
feedback?
typically what we do. And I hear what Nadine's saying and what you're saying, and it could be approved by the planning board, but theoretically, it's a bond to the
Town board, right.
So they are.
The only reason I say that I want to be involved in it is because historically we have set the price of the bond based on information that we've received, and then we've made a recommendation to the town board on that amount.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'd like to
Yeah,
still be a part of that.
I just meant they'll make the recommendation to you, you make the
Yeah,
recommendation
okay.
to the town.
Well, I
board.
guess we could say that you don't sign the site plan until all of these steps have been taken.
Of course,
But that would be a condition of.
right, that's a condition, yeah.
Exactly.
But the bond is something that we need to agree,
Well, we need to have.
right?
We would review it.
And make a
Make the
recommendation. Right, we might say it's not enough or too much or whatever, right, based on Greg's.
Hopefully, he would tell.
Yeah.
Right, you would. tell.
Right, we would make a recommendation.
But it does have to be accepted by the town board.
Correct, we have to make a recommendation to them.
I
Zorian?
don't remember the wording, there is a 20% contingency or something crazy,
Bond is, yeah, so Nadine's gonna read code based on what she receives for the evaluations. Greg will get it, they'll do the math, submit that number to us, it's a $500,000 project, at X%, here's the amount of the bond.
Yeah, and it should, it'll include everything, any wetland mitigation, any.
Permitting, everything, yeah,
The last thing I have.
go ahead.
Go ahead. One thing about that, and then usually that's part of, or it may not be part of the bond itself, but one of the things you brought up, that's happened in another town, it's not so much the bond doesn't get posted, but it expires. So I don't know if that's part of.
That's interesting.
Huh.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
So meaning,
Well, in other words, it goes for 3 years.
Okay.
The project
that's
gets delayed and then the bond expires and nobody's in the town.
they can take it off my
paying
taxes,
that the bond expired and now you have the bond.
understood.
And-
This is the first time that we've required since I've been here, but it sounds like the best division of labor is for the planning board to set basically the amount and whatever physical conditions, things like that. The town board is going to deal with, and the town attorney is going to deal with all of the financial conditions of the bond,
Right.
including presumably the most important, second most important, which is the length of it. So that's up to her.
Expiration.
to work
Yeah,
out.
the cost of the bond goes up, the longer the bond goes down.
Right, but I have seen that in other towns where.
Right, where it has to be renewed or
Renewed
engineer
annually,
estimate or.
yeah.
Yes, that's-
Some,
Good
because
point.
bonds aren't forever. They're-
Yeah.
Why don't you give me some language on that and we can check that with the town board as to what they would like to do for considering expiration of bond.
Right, and they may have a mechanism.
And they might say it never expires.
Just with the mine land reclamation law and bonding of that, a lot of there's legal descriptions in the law that would say before the bond expires, you have to give the state, the state whatever 60 days notice, if not, blah, 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 So I think if you use that language and or put the planning board on that bond as well, they get notified. So it's just
It's
a
part of
mod,
it,
you know, we can make it
right,
look
with the
that
bond.
same model.
So I'll be in Maui by then. Just-
Well, that's fine.
Well, and the
In
building
the
department,
burn.
right, because they're the ones that are the building permits, so
Sure.
bonds expired, they, you know, have a.
Okay,
And the last thing, I have for with conditions, Greg, help me out here, the SWIP at some point in that document talks about, I don't know whether it's a monthly or quarterly maintenance report that has to be filled out. Sorry, I was getting a call coming, we just wanted to cancel it. So the maintenance, the HOA, I think, was anticipated to be the ones that are going to fill out the maintenance report, the drainage facilities, the retention, whatever, they're the ones that are gonna be responsible for filling out that maintenance report. And correct me if I'm wrong about this maintenance report in the SWIP.
it's like a log, right?
Yeah,
Well, when you're talking about, so if you're talking about the, I don't know if you're now talking about the long-term maintenance of stormwater facilities.
Yes.
Okay. So typically, most of the ones that I deal with are towns where they take the facilities, so they're the ones that are maintaining and creating a stormwater district.
In this situation, the HOA is gonna be writing a report to town board, planning board, whoever, building inspector, whoever's involved, stating that the long-term, plan of the SWIP is still in place.
So the
This is a
SWIP
good point.
includes,
Who's the permittee on the SWIP?
so this is what happens with subdivisions. The developer holds it, and they hold it until which time they start selling lots. And then each lot owner is responsible for the component that's part of their lot. So there is language on how to transfer this, you know, to each owner. But the developer will hold it during the time of the road construction and everything else before, you know, the lots are sold and
I'm
developed.
confused, Nadine, when you say that the lot owner that owns that particular, I mean, most SWIPs have, you know,
Yeah.
certain specific things that really have to function that are in one place, like the, you know, the stormwater basin.
Culvert,
That, well, no, culvert's linear, that can go through every lot.
Right,
I'm
but
talking
that's-
about ultimately, it all goes down to a stormwater basin where the settling has to occur. And that one lot owner is responsible for that, that's a big deal, because that's where the problem's gonna be.
Right, so there are post stormwater practices that are part of the homeowners association, you know, so originally the developer, the homeowners association will be in charge.
Well, that's where I was going, is the
Fire
HOA
temporary.
going to be responsible for any of these particular components and?
Yes,
Okay.
definitely, but still, once a lot is sold, and this is within, you know, the general permit, that that has to be transferred for that lot, because each lot has its own development standards as well, and sort of erosion control methods it has to
We did that
do.
on.
So they open their own, they file their own notice of intent, and they hold their own permit for their little lot under the whole SWIP document. So it's not like the whole SWIP
So you're
is
saying,
transferred.
okay, so you started with a SWIP.
Yes.
And over time, it's gonna get transferred in two ways, the responsibility for it, the permit, the person who's, one is if there's facilities like a culvert or something like that, that are sort of common or, you know, typical.
Yeah.
That's gonna go to the landowner,
That-
but the big things like the stormwater
Water
basin
retention areas, yeah, the road
is going to
swales,
be
all
of
homeowners.
the responsibility of the HOA, and that's to be transferred to the HOA, even if it's on somebody's property.
Correct, yeah.
so that's what I'm concerned with, that the review, this maintenance report is done appropriately and reviewed. That it's even been done by the HOA. Speaking to my concern about HOAs being responsible.
Yeah, so I
for such
will,
things.
Well, and I mean, what I would say is could put it in as a condition that what happens with it is that annually the HOA makes certain, the engineer of record make a certification of the facilities annually as to to the building inspector to the town. So I'm not sure exactly who they would provide that certification to, but that could be a condition as that the HOA would have to report annually to the town. They're gonna have to have a consultant.
Or
Hey, Dan.
a qualified inspector, because, you know, Pete won't be around for 100 years.
Right.
So, right, so, but that's the thing, so in the SWIP, it outlines what the maintenance of these facilities
Right.
are, right? And what the maintenance requirements are for good practices.
I'm still,
And how they, but it doesn't say that technically you have to report it to anyone. You don't even have to report to the DEC. It just, the report includes what the maintenance practices are.
I'm still, before we even get to reporting, I want more fundamentally, I want to talk about the basic responsibility. Suppose there is a problem in the portion of the SWIP that is basically a individual lot owners. Let's say a culvert or something like that gets completely clogged because the landowner doesn't take care of it. If the entity that we're the most familiar with, that we're most confident in, which is the HOA here, are they supposed to report a problem that is on an individual landowner's lot and that the individual landowner is the permittee for and has the responsibility for it? How does that happen?
So.
Well, no,
it's
because all of
something-
the facilities I think you're kind of referring to are part of the HOA's
Well,
responsibility.
then we're back
The
to
the culverts on the lot are good. Go ahead.
I will just say, if there is something that functions as part of the SWIP, the way the SWIP's designed.
Yeah.
Say the culvert under the driveway, if for some reason that culvert under the driveway is back outside of the road easement, right, and it's on somebody's property, there will be another easement put over that. I don't think there is anything right now that's on an individual lot that's not within another easement. But if there is something that needs to be maintained as part of the SWIP design, it will be put in an easement and it will,
So
so
now,
that they have maintenance
now what you're
access.
saying is the HOA will control all aspects of the SWIP that are necessary for the general treatment of water. And the only thing that an individual is responsible for is things specifically.
Yeah, you know, yeah, if
affected.
they spin, you know, some sort of gutter drain on their property and it's not functioning properly, the HOA has nothing to say.
It's their
about it.
responsibility.
But if it is something, you know, like, again, you know, one of the swales or the bioretention area or something else,
So
yeah.
the HOA will have a drainage easement over everybody's property and they will have functional
If it's
control.
necessary, yes. And just like, because right now there's drainage easements over kind of the road frontage over several lots because that's where the national wetlands are, it's kind of that whole area. So the HOA will have jurisdiction to maintain those areas if necessary, or if somebody's clearing or filling to say, no, you can't fill here because part of the drainage easement, you can't fill it. So anything that has to be maintained, if it is on an individual lot, will be maintained.
Sorian,
A question to this. How each owner of subdivision would be obligated to be a member of HOA and how they will be alerted when they buy the property, say financially, but to contribute systematically.
That's part of the point I originally made, which is that we don't have an HOA document. We have things that are being colloquially called an HOA, but it's really some easement. So the formation of the HOA, the obligation to join the HOA, which is something you're referring to, and
costs.
well, the bylaws, let's put it that way. We don't have those pure HOA documents. All we have is easements. So the answer is we don't have that.
But eventually, who is gonna adjust it, who is gonna?
Well, yeah, who's gonna run the HOA?
Well, we don't have, again, we
Who-
don't have the
And are we gonna
bylaws.
see the HOA documents
Yes,
upon approval?
you guys need to approve those documents.
So-
It goes to you to review and to the board for discussion, and they all have to be accepted.
Does the app,
And I'm just gonna ask because I just assumed, well, this document was kind of wrapped up in one. So, you know.
So let me
if
answer
there
that,
could be
Nikki.
some communication to the attorney with.
Yeah, let's set that up. The
Yeah.
document that I've seen that I'm familiar with has two easements on it. It's got the RMA, Road Maintenance Agreement, which is functionally an easement,
Mhm.
and it's got the conservation easement as an exhibit to that. But what I'm saying is that I haven't yet seen
Bylaws,
any
costs.
any
So we
definition.
could definitely set up something, you think?
Yeah,
Okay, that would be
whatever you
great.
guys want.
Okay.
And we have to have some discussion on those easements also to wrap them up, but, so we should do that.
Yeah, and I will say part of, the condition for that, survey map that's gonna be provided with all the bearings and distances. That will include all the easements and their descriptions as well, so that's. But I mean, they're shown on here, but they're not totally defined
Yeah.
as far as that goes, which it will be.
Ultimately, we need to do that.
You're right.
That's one of the, that would be.
So
the
Megan,
next-
number 7 on your list says the applicant shall provide a homeowner association document to the satisfaction of the planning board attorney.
What document?
A homeowners association document to the
Yeah.
satisfaction. So Nadine, can you get an email to me and Dave and your attorney's representative so we can get something
So just
scheduled?
to be
Yeah.
specific, that document, I have not seen yet, the 2 easements. I've seen, I think we're very far along on the conservation easement, we need to have a further conversation, including. One of the issues would be the meets and bounds, and I think we also have the conversations to wrap up the road maintenance agreement.
Okay, great. So I do know that the owner is out of town, some personal family things for a little bit. But when he's available, I will definitely follow up with that because I need his approval to engage the attorney.
And we need
Because
Greg
they
and
cost more
Megan,
than me.
add
Okay.
Greg and Megan to that call.
I'll make
Yeah.
myself, whenever you wanna do that, let's move
Okay,
along.
great, thank you.
Okay,
So I guess I started my potential condition by asking,
on the long term.
how do we long-term make sure that these things are being maintained? And the wag in me says, I don't care because the HOA, if they don't maintain it, they're gonna be in trouble in the sense of things are gonna back up and all that. On the other hand, the actual conservation area, we're saying, yeah, we want you to do that, and we need to make sure that what's going into that area is being maintained so that what's going into it is not in excess of what's going into it now, that's part of the SWIP, that it's being treated properly, so I'm still not sure, I mean, you have to look at the agreement
And
as to how this thing is maintained, these things are maintained long term.
right, and I think with that and with also the road maintenance, or the road maintenance, my thoughts is that the recommendation that I would have is that the planning board may have a requirement that the applicant has to engage a professional, not us, but like Nadine, engage a professional to annually certify that the road is in the condition as required to meet the fire department, and that the stormwater facilities are functioning properly, and annual certification. Now, who that goes to, it shouldn't go to the planning board.
Building inspector.
Building inspector.
It's their
And then if the
requirement.
building inspector wants to engage a professional, they don't have to engage us, but whoever they want to engage, then they can engage someone to review that certification if they feel that it's necessary to be further reviewed. Otherwise, and then it puts it more so not just on the HOA, but the HOA is hiring a person with a license that has to put their stamp on it and say, this road's good.
Okay. as long as
Or
it-
these ponds are still functioning, my retention areas are still functioning properly.
In accordance to the SWIP or whatever.
Correct.
Are you talking more about the SWIP, or are you talking about, sound like you're talking about the road?
I'm talking about both.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
You're looking for an annual report coming from a third party,
yes,
making a recommendation to building inspector, HOA, anybody involved, saying everything is fine.
right,
Or,
on anything that I think the HOA has responsibility.
which should
for.
be
So I
everything,
kind of-
conservation, roads,
Shared infrastructure.
Yeah.
shared infrastructure, lighting.
That way, and then I'm sorry, I just kind of jumped
No,
into
that's
the
great.
road because I had that same recommendation.
Megan, I hope you got all that.
The other part of that is that I think we also have a condition that, I think it's clear to everybody, but a condition that also says that, the town, building department, highway superintendent, or the fire district may enter the road for
Inspection
inspections if,
purposes.
necessary, because they should drive up the roads here and there and look anyway. But this just gives that other level of, they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to do that, and,
I'm good with that.
Do we need that to be a condition?
I just think that it could be a part of the annual report stating that, the third party may be engaged in the, fire inspector at the time of inspection to certify that the road was in good shape, or the
And I don't want to get over, but I mean, you could say at least annually. But I don't want to open it up so much that the HOA gets a request every week to provide certificate. I mean, there needs to be some measure of reasonableness, but you're right. I mean, a huge storm event, the road washes out, then the HOA needs to do something.
And
there
the
needs
highway
to be a
superintendent's gonna see that. right?
Yeah, and the highway superintendent to see that and say, somebody needs to.
I think Nadine raised a comment 2 minutes ago that one of the things that we might need here is not just a consultant, we may need the ability for town officials to
Inspect.
use
I
that road.
think, I think technically they do, like, it's kind of no thing, but I don't think it would hurt to have that language, just so everybody's aware of it. Like,
So
listen, if you
highway
don't
super
maintain
wants to
it,
go
it's a
up that road.
problem. You know, the town's gonna come out, or the fire department.
That's good.
And they usually have something, and I just don't know the legal mechanism for it, that basically says, and if you don't, the highway department's gonna go out and fix it, send you a bill.
And send you a bill.
But there's usually language in there about reasonableness to respond.
That's not gonna do that to a private road, because there's so many crappy private roads already here that they're not, they don't care about like White Birch Lane.
I'm not saying they're gonna do it, but they have the right to do it.
Right, exactly, right.
If the road gets washed out, nobody can get through, they might not have a choice,
Right, and they're gonna get
because now fire.
pressured by the fire department. Fire department's gonna say, somebody's gotta do something. Yeah.
And sometimes neighbors will call the building
Right.
department, say, oh, by the way, you know, this is happening, you know, to my road. And, you know, so the building department. Again. I
So
appreciate
Megan,
they
draft
have
us something.
the,
Give us some
you know,
verbiage.
language, to just say, you know, yeah, they have the right to this private road and, you know, make comments about it.
Okay, Rick, I am, on my items, I have nothing else.
Got
I can think of something.
it.
You know, there's a lot of work that went into this.
I appreciate every second of
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
I do, and I am.
Okay, Megan, you got homework? Greg, you got
organized.
homework?
We'll get copies of
Dave,
that.
you got homework?
Okay, see that.
We'll put it all together and Jasmine will send it all in. I got
Yeah.
that too, so give it to Jasmine, we'll put it all in one. I got my notes too, yeah. Whatever.
Here's one for Jasmine, here's one for Megan.
Works for.
Okay. You're all set. I'm not gonna get this on for next week.
You know, that's fine, so that's what I just wanted to discuss, just so that, you know, nobody forgets about us. Still work on the draft, can we get a copy, even if it's just draft?
Yeah, when Megan sends us something,
Conditions,
I'm gonna send it to Dave to review and then I'll copy it at the same time.
Yeah, give us a copy, like I said, we do have some comments from the health department, we have some comments from the Army Corps of Engineers. So we'd like to incorporate those revisions at this time, and then, you know, when we come back and we have these other conditions, we can say, look, you know, we've done that, because, you know, we need to, well, that's one of the conditions is we need their approval, so.
Chair, I just want to bring something that we told the public during the public hearings.
Yeah.
That we would take a little bit of comments, and most have to do with the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that we would write up something that would explain to them how that's being taken care of.
Right, so I think that the conditions of approval would satisfy as our responses as to what we're doing for them. So when we have the conditions of approval, we could have copies here for the public to review as we're going over this. I think that sort of satisfies each individual question as we're going through the approval, we could stop and say, this satisfies the concern that came from the public in regards to this. This is our response to
That may work for one of the major things that came out, that was the financial limited.
that. Correct.
And they do have the right to go through the concern.
Yep.
I'm not sure that will work for some of the environmental concerns that came up. I forget the name of the gentleman, but where he had a problem. with lot number 3.
Ira,
Thank you, yeah, Irish term. And I think the answer to that is you can't see the house from the wrong house. So I think we just need.
which
to
would be,
fulfill
that
our-
would be in our condition.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we should do that.
Absolutely.
I think we need to fill our.
Obligation, absolutely. I think that in our conditions of approval, we will answer the questions with what their question was with our answer with, we recognize your concern for lot 3, but because it's due to this elevation and topography, it's not.
We can provide, at least some sort of, language to the response that you can utilize in any way you want.
If you want to draft something for us, then I can take a peek at it. We can add and change.
I know we did talk about it, and I know a lot of these things are still part of.
Agreed, absolutely. I was thinking that the condition of approval would satisfy.
We
talked about every lot.
neighbors walk the site, so they know where the house is and they know it can't see
Okay.
it to make it super and
Moving,
Fine needed.
what's that?
Not necessarily a condition of approval, but kind of a finding in the resolution.
That's, yeah. So in your,
Well, not necessarily the seeker finding, but findings of
page 2 of your current resolution says where you have the lot sizes and what the conservation area sizes are gonna be, we can add those responses from the public there.
right,
Okay.
That's a.
right. Because then they made their comment, you've acknowledged it, we put it in your resolution, you've acknowledged it, and this is how you
That's where it could go.
consider it.
In the G Drive is all the public comments that we received in writing.
Okay,
So that's a great start because the person who we were just in context to did provide us that in writing, so that's in there. And then in our minutes, which we will send you, has all the individual comments.
That's great.
and then a lot of times what we'll do is we'll rely on the applicant to provide some responses.
Okay,
Thank
Alright.
you very much.
thanks Nadine. Moving on, you guys want to take a quick couple minute break? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, enjoy the holidays.
Thank you, Scott.
You're not gonna see you next week for anything? Hudson Valley Seed, you better be here.
Yes.
Don't think you're getting away too easy.
Right?
Don't think you're getting away too. I don't wanna tell you.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye. You're actually third. Absolutely not. We haven't had a workshop meeting since I started this chair.
But-
She ruined that today.
And Mark, you're not looking at us.
You're all set. Get home. Thank you. Thanks for coming, guys. All right, you guys want to take a minute or two? Want to take a minute or two? 2 minutes, 3, Zorian? Want to take a minute or two? Okay, and then we'll get started.
So, yeah, there's so.
I know we're all association. Take care of your driveway. Mow your lawn. They just did it today. Yeah, that's it. It's not up for discussion.
Yeah.
And you had monthly assessment.
Some towns are starting to look at it more so on the law, because it got into the whole, houses under foreclosure
In this-
and the banks wouldn't.
That's it. In this town, people. I'm tired of looking at you.
I have talked to an attorney about that. I don't know if you can go take some of that car. But you could possibly. I got a town that has that too. And that's been a huge discussion because it's like, well, it's a classic car.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you may think it's a piece of junk,
Rotting in the ground.
but it's my class, you know, it's my piece of junk.
Okay, let's get on to something a little bit more fun. How's that? So, first things first, and my other matter is October 11th meeting minutes approval. Can I have
I make a motion to approve the October 11th meeting minutes.
Wait, what happened in November?
well, I have that on the next. So a motion from Zach, second from Rick. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, how about November 13th?
I make a motion to approve the November 13th meeting minutes.
Second?
Second that.
By Cindy. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So you abstain. Thank you. Okay. The next thing is the calendar revision. Calendar revision. I sent a calendar revision out, which has another revision, but it's just a technicality. These are next year's meetings and deadlines. So you'll look to see in the first box, the month, the second box is our cutoff, it's code enforcement officer, when an application is to be turned in order to make the next following agenda. The planning board cutoff is the next date, and then the meeting dates are at the end. So you will see our workshop meetings are in the third column and our meeting dates are in the fourth column. Zorian pointed out, because he's my grammar expert, that in the bottom right corner is January of 25. That should show Monday, January 13th of 2025. We'll get that corrected, but I'm not giving you another copy.
So it's
Thanks.
another one. Huge pencil.
Exactly.
Everybody
I
can
think
see
this quarter.
It's a simple one.
Yep, thanks. And in the top right corner, the first one is January 24th. So I hope that we can figure that out. Okay. Any objections to this? The only issue that I see is there was one holiday that I had to move to a Wednesday, which was Veterans Day. And we know that the November and December workshops historically have kind of canceled due to the holidays, but because of the nature of this application, we needed it. Okay. Anything else on the calendars? Okay, calendar done.
Motion to approve this?
No,
Still send us another one, please.
I wasn't asking you for the date, that's telling me. Okay. All right, here we go. Now we have the zoning map. So this is a draft review of local law C. The map changes in front of you. You should have the following 3 documents, which is 5 copies of the zoning map, which is the first one in the 4 overlay districts behind it. We have Appendix B, which is lot development standards you can do in each zoning district. And then Appendix C, which is the new scheduled district regulations that I received today, showing what you can do where. Okay, so if you're in a R1 district, you can build a house. If you're in a PL10, what you can and can't do. Okay, so those things are. I'd like to start with the Appendix B, which is the smaller of the 3 packets. You'll just see here the red lines of the changes of what was changed compared to what is existing. So in agriculture 3, the lot coverage went from 30% to 20%. In AB3, same thing. In R5, went from a 15% coverage to a 10%. And then the addition of PL10. So that's going to be what your lot depths, widths, areas that you can utilize in those new zoning districts. Okay. Not much to talk about there. That's just what they're doing. We can provide comment if we want on lot widths and standards and things like that, but I don't have any changes on how big the lot is going to be. There's not a whole lot of changes from it. So I'm good with that.
They're essentially reducing.
The use, that's a different, use is where we're going to now. This is just,
No, I said reducing lot coverage. So the house should be smaller now or?
no, what they're saying is that in a lot coverage, the maximum lot coverage that you can utilize in an Ag 3 district is 20%.
And lot
So-
coverage is a building, roads.
Anything that you are doing on the lot can only take up 20% of that lot
That's
in the
what I'm
agriculture
trying to-
district, right?
So no mentions,
No comments.
Mentions.
Comments?
no mentions.
No mentions, no. No mentions. No, Millbrook Road, castles. That's correct. Okay, moving on. Appendix C, scheduled district regulation uses. This shows where you can put a campground, where you can put an animal hospital, where you can put a storage unit. Low density, high density, non-for-profit locations, places of worship, restaurants, where these are allowed and what you can do in them. So for instance, let's flip to, I'm gonna go to page 4, restaurants. Okay, in a restaurant is a commercial district, but in an AB3, it would be a special use permit. In an R1, it would be a special use permit. In a hamlet, it would be a principal permitted use with site plan approval. And in a business district, it would be a principal permitted use with site plan approval. So that's how you would read this, is what you could do where. So this is a really important document. Any application that comes to the planning board, I start with this. This is like my Bible, because if somebody wants to do something, outside of their zoning designation, this tells me what they need to do, and it also is what the building department says, what and where, okay? Zorian?
It's going forward, it's not set in stone.
Correct, that we're making comments on it, that's what.
One question,
Yep.
one question about appendix C.
Yep,
We have obviously things like natural gas and petroleum
Yep.
exploration. Hence the X's in all the lines, those are verboten. However, we have lots of blank boxes. How do we interpret that?
What's the blank box on that?
not a permit, not allowed.
Then why
Blank,
didn't
you
it
mean
get
blank?
a verboten X?
Because in the nature of cleaning this up, we want to make sure that anything that's in that box is what it is.
So it is not allowed.
So let's go to the second item, okay? Let's do that for everyone's take, so pay attention here. At Page 1, agriculture, labor, housing. Okay,
Mhm.
in the first box, it's agriculture, second, A3. So in an agriculture 3 district, it would need, it would be a accessory with site plan approval. In an AB3, same thing.
Mhm.
R1, same thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Now let's go down to the next one, agriculture processing facility. This is allowed in an agriculture category with an agriculture 3 zoning designation would be a special use permit, but in an AB3, it's a principal permitted use. So that means you can do it.
R1 and R2.
R1 and R2, you could not do it.
Okay, but again, it should have an X for prohibited
Okay,
use, that's all, that was
Yeah,
simply
because-
what I was asking.
Understood.
Blank box.
Yeah,
you have a legend.
Yeah.
Understood.
Have a legend.
I read it as that's like uber clutter, and I would be looking for it as an X. I would say we needed it because in our document that we created for the planning board, an X meaning we needed to do it. So I see both sides.
Okay, all right, that was
Yes.
just my question.
I don't know if it was intended, but
So blank
sometimes
and X mean the same.
conventional zoning, if it's not permitted, if it's not listed as permitted, it's not permitted.
Right.
But some codes, perhaps the X's mean. However, there's certain uses that are expressly prohibited.
Sure. Meaning
So-
no matter what, you can't do it.
Correct.
Right, understood.
Okay.
So there's sometimes codes make that distinction.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if this code is doing that. It's just-
Well, like if you go to
That's the
page,
way I interpret
well, so Rick, go to page 3 where natural gas or petroleum exploration, it is X. There's X's all the way through because it is a prohibited use in any in any zoning district. You can't do it anywhere, no matter what. So that's a good comment. I mean, it's a little cloudy, but it's,
Well, I think we should ask them,
Sure.
comments, or should they, what's your intent? If you can't do it, put an X.
exactly.
The other comment that I have, I did go through this, because we got this,
No, I mean, there is a difference. If it's something that's prohibited, like natural gas exploration, fracking.
Yeah.
Suppose the applicant goes to the zoning board, the ZBA for a variance,
Variance.
saying that, can't make a. If the point of the X is, it's not just something you need a variance from the zoning, it's prohibited.
Don't bother.
Right? That's a
That's-
difference where if it's, you got the box,
And that's
you can
what
go to the ZBA and get the use variance.
Right, and that's what I took this ledger to mean, that if there's no X in the box, then you could apply for a variance or a special use
It's
permit,
not allowed,
even though there's no SUP in it.
right,
That's all.
but the X means that there's a specific prohibition,
Okay.
perhaps on environmental or safety grounds and CPA.
So we'll get a clarification on that definition.
Since you,
So there's a lot of stuff that people can just put in for special permits.
They have to go to the ZBA.
Yeah.
Right. And again, remember, keep in mind that if anybody wants to do a use in a certain zoning district that's not allowed, you can always petition the town board to change your zoning district. That's has always been in effect. Depending on their review and their assessment,
when do they need this back on?
like yesterday.
So,
We're gonna keep going, right? We have more, but
I've got a question.
Sure.
One thing I'm noticing, and I might be missing something, is that there's no item for multifamily housing. And that, you may know, I mean, it's just a huge deal over on the Hudson Valley, up and down the river in terms of housing shortages and also fairness, and it's actually a civil rights issue. So I'm just wondering, I mean, you can get in trouble if somebody comes in, wants to build some condos and you don't allow it. there can be issues with that depending on what they're doing, and so I'm just wondering if the town is.
I know that we had,
Yeah, that was in the.
two
table
family used to
somewhere.
be.
Oh, do we?
You got
Well,
dwelling
even if it's out
multifamily.
of.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What is it, Dave?
You got dwelling multifamily.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a special use permit in.
There you go. It's there.
Right.
Half
Okay.
the- half
I knew it used to be in the old one, but I haven't. Okay,
you understand.
moving on this part, we'll go to the map.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Commercial events.
Yep.
I don't think it should be even a special use.
Zorian, pay attention to what we got going on here, because you're gonna have a question.
It should be taken out as a special use, the A3 and the AB3,
And what should it be?
nothing. Or it should be just blank.
What's the category again?
I believe it already, it's right now, I believe it is.
Figure it out.
Okay.
But why would you take it out?
Because I think one of the biggest, the most controversy
You're gonna have
created
another session.
is this can't be coming primarily because of the noise.
No, but the issue is you have current commercial events such as West Wind and that whole corridor in AR3
But
right
what
now.
about when Chris Calder has his Tulip Festival?
Yeah.
Or
Same
things like
thing.
that?
That's permitted
It's
as-
ag.
No, it's ag.
not a,
It's
Oh,
ag.
right.
So currently in an ag district, you can, commercial events is a special use. So same thing then.
So it should stay.
Okay.
scale there is A3 or?
And then.
AR3, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna give you another one that's a
Go ahead.
problem here. What the hell is the farm stand called? Not Davenport, Saunderskill,
Yep,
okay?
that's an
Even
agribusiness.
though the map's been kicked out of bed, it's proposed to change that to hamlet designation.
Yeah.
And you don't have SUP under commercial events facility or commercial recreation. So what happens to their tractor pull and the
So-
horse pull?
Agriculture,
If they go to hamlet, they can't do it.
Culture.
no, it's a site, it's a special use.
Retail
permit.
sales.
No, under Pink's hamlet, dude.
No, I'm with you. What is your
Commercial
use?
Facility, commercial recreation, oh, you're on special.
Agriculture, it will be
Agriculture,
tourism
retail.
and things like
Yeah, it would be agricultural retail sales, which is a special use permit in Hamlet.
Yeah, okay.
Plus it's an existing use.
But
That's pretty-
Cindy, you bring a good point. If they want to do, you're saying, they want to do the tractor pull, they have to come here to get a special use.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
They shouldn't have to do that. They've been doing.
that. No, but it's not anymore.
Well, I think the whole thing with the
I
hamlet,
see now.
the aqua and would be extended.
That's another conversation. We're not there yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. Let's go back to this. We're gonna get to the map in a second. You wanna scrap that, Cindy, or what do you wanna do?
No, that's fine.
You wanna keep it like that, special use in the Hamlet?
Well, I think what Cindy's raising the issue, which I have also, the redefinition of the hamlet.
Right, I'm gonna get. to that.
Totally different conversation.
Totally different conversation. We'll just table that now
Okay,
until we come
perfect.
around that corner.
Any other questions on scheduled district regulations? I think it's pretty good.
I like the way it's laid out.
Me too. This is,
I
it's
have
so much
no
better.
question. You don't need to read.
We have eliminated, commercial stables. That was a comment, it was one of my comments, it was one of Maureen's comments, but, on the zoning code, it was there, and then it was deleted. So now this is reflecting, it doesn't reflect any of the comments that were provided.
Where is the commercial stables currently in our zoning?
It was there, but if you
Under
look
what
at the
form?
doc-
Right, with the stable private, that's it.
But there is no longer, when I reviewed the red line zoning law.
Yep.
There was an entry for commercial, it was Xed out, red lined, and the only thing that retained was private, so I know Maren put that in her comments, I put it in my comments to you.
Yep, which I
But
sent.
I
it
don't
already.
know if it's gonna be
Yeah,
reflected.
we've sent those notes in, but those haven't been reviewed.
Got it.
But can you tell me where a commercial stable is in a current scheduled district regulation?
No, I cannot at this time.
So I need to know that because if it's been taken out of a current district, I can ask them to put it back in that same district.
Okay,
So I
so
don't
let me
see
go
it,
back to the,
I don't see it in AR3
okay.
at all. Which is where it should be, but it may be an agribusiness.
No. So Helena, just send me that email. I didn't know where it is currently. So we can
Okay,
get it
if
back.
it is, I have to go back
Okay,
to that.
okay. Good on the
If
schedule?
it isn't, we should have that, correct?
Absolutely. Bring that as a recommendation. Anything else on the scheduled district regulations? Hearing nothing. Moving on to the map. Okay, this is what I have done. I don't know what the town board's plan is, but I know my plan. And that is to provide them a, you two down there are killing me, you know that? Zorian, you're killing me.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I said commercial stable can be.
All right, well, we'll come back to it. We don't need the answer right this time.
Yeah.
All right, on the map. My goal is to provide the town board with a detailed list, not an area, not a general direction of town, a list that I've already started that I have on a large array of lots that I think need to be relooked at. And I've provided a reason. If anybody was here at the meeting the other night, there was a lot of public input, which was very good, but the public input sometimes falls on deaf ears because there's so much going on. We need a list to provide to the town board, not just an area, because that's how things get moved over again. So with this, which I realize is small, but I've emailed you all this. I have a Excel sheet started that has the following: an SBL number, the current owner of record, the current zoning, what the planning board would like to see the zoning go to, and the reason. Okay, I'm gonna start with Schoonmaker, Cindy, since you brought that up. What? No, no, this is mine. You should have your own. Schoonmaker's property. The property that is on 209 is current zoning of a business. I am proposing that it goes to agribusiness for where they are running retail operations, and agricultural where they are currently farming those operations. And that, my reasoning is because currently operating as such, it's pre-existing, and all the lots that are owned by the Schoonmakers are either farmed or for retail sales. They don't just own land that they're not doing anymore. It's the oldest farm in our state. Okay, so this is what I am doing as my list to provide to the town as our part of the planning board. Zorian?
Is planning board supposed to speak for each landowner?
If you looked at the map and you have a concern based on what the town is doing, I want that information so that we can provide it to the town for them to look at. All the landowners were here the other night who were not in favor of this. And although some of them made really good points, some of them didn't make good points. And they need to voice their opinion accordingly.
I'm gonna agree with you, but I'm saying you pick up one, selectively pick up one order and even out another. It's not.
We're not gonna catch it all, but
it's
I
not
can,
systematic.
well,
Then land owners will approach the town.
of course, but we as the planning board are an involved agency. They ask for our comments based on our review. We have to provide them with something. So if you have a lot that you saw or a neighbor or something that you see as a proposed use, we need that input.
I think what he's saying, I think what John's saying is that he wants to comment in a way that's different than doing it by individual lot. He wants to talk about more an area type of thing.
And we're
What
gonna
do you say?
we're gonna get that overall, but I have to give them a list of individual lots because they're gonna say, okay, like for instance, here's another example that I have.
But would they treat it that if you didn't give them another lots, you agree with them?
Yes,
You're gonna cover hundreds of lots?
yes, I am. I'm gonna put the work in to do it because it needs to be right. I've already done half the work. So here's another example. The Accord Corridor from Lucas Turnpike to Skate Time should be in a business district.
They changed it to Hamlin.
They changed it to Hamlin. It shouldn't be, okay? The Medicahonk storage units should be commercial. They're moving them to a Hamlin. So this is the homework that you need to put in the time to see what they're doing because it's a lot of work. Okay, that's fine. The town rock quarry located on Crum Road is moved into a residential district. It should be a natural resource. The community services district that was created is for property that's owned by the town. That should be eliminated. The town land should be, that could be potentially sold in the future.
And then that would need to be rezoned, which could create spot zoning, which is against our law. It needs to be in its current zoning district, not what the town owns. For instance, the town owns a piece of property on Queens Highway and Rochester Center Road, it's 4 acres. They want to move that into community services. It should stay in natural resource district. They own a piece of property on Project 32 Road that's in a residential district. They want to move that into community services. It should not. The town should not be in the business of owning property.
Why not?
What's the advantage?
They've owned it for whatever amount of time and it's.
It's less tax revenue that's coming into the town.
Develop it for something.
Yep.
Or they're gonna sell it.
So in a residential district, we want a park or something that's going on? I disagree.
Why not?
The Pine Ridge Lane property that neighbors the feed store and the tire store is on a private road. It should be residential, not in a business district.
So Mark, since from my perspective.
Yep.
Taking a look at what Zorni and Marshall that he said.
Yep.
Some of these things, if you portray it as the planning board, we may not agree, I don't.
No, that's fine.
So one of.
These are my list of items I have.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm saying I'm creating a list of everyone's input, and then we can make a decision on what we want to do at the next meeting. We're not gonna have something turned into that.
Well, I already disagree with you in terms of the town shouldn't own property.
That's fine.
I wouldn't want it to be portrayed that would tell people.
That, absolutely understood. I'm saying that these are the things that I have started, and we can compile a list.
I guess I look at this as a couple of perspectives. Whoever the current landowner is, has responsibility of determining whether or not.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And let them, right,
Sure.
It's not a business
except
plan board
for
will run
this
like
Ackwood district,
Mhm.
where I think they made a grievous mistake.
Yep.
And as a planning board member, I can say, no, it should not be changed to a hamlet, it should remain where it is, which is business.
And agriculture. Sure. Yep.
That's the only one that I have. any
That's the only
knowledge
one?
of.
Okay.
And it's only from hearing from the owners who I know.
Sure.
But everything else should be the homeowner's responsibility, not ours.
We have to make comments.
I guess
In my opinion, that
there's 1,400 properties that they changed this
Yeah.
for. For us, for any one person here, maybe you have the time, to go through 1,400.
yeah, it's important to me. So
But I think that should be as an individual, not as a planning board.
Okay.
Because we could sit here all night debating 1,400 different
Sure.
properties.
So what would the planning board like me to submit to the town board on behalf of the planning?
Certainly the Accord, I don't agree with. And I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. That should be.
So the Accord
restored.
Hamlet expansion should be rescinded.
Well, except I think they did expand it into some areas south by the Granum.
Right. In my opinion, the Accord Hamlet should start from Main Street at 209 and go to the start of Stony Kill Road.
Yes. They should not include the properties on 209.
They should not.
Thank you very much. I
Exactly.
agree.
Okay.
So that, I think, is a planning board,
Got it?
And other than that, I don't know of any other
Okay.
major changes they make that the homeowner should be aware of.
Well,
And they did receive letters, there were 500.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy because a lot of people talk. Cindy, I know you have a bunch.
well, you have all my written comments
Yep.
from the code. but-
Yeah, those have already been submitted.
Thank you. In regards to the zoning itself, I wasn't here for the meeting, but I did listen and I hear our community. And one gentleman made a very important statement, I think, that I kind of took to heart, being a landlord myself. He accused our town of being his landlord, and in effect, we are. The town is the landlord of all of the people that live in our town.
Yep.
We pay taxes twice a year to the town and the school and the state. So with that being said, people are perceiving these zoning changes, rightfully so, I feel, as our town trying to take not necessarily something tangible, but something intangible from them that they perceive as valuable. And that's why we had such an outpouring of people voicing their concerns. I think that the changing of people's business properties on 209 to residential, even though they are in residential use,
It's not acceptable.
takes away their feeling of potential for their homestead. And I don't think it does any good thing for the town to take that potential away from them. I don't think our town should force that down their throats.
So I wrote on my, this is my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 8th item that says, items currently in a commercial district that are vacant land should stay in the commercial district. Pre-existing businesses should stay businesses. And anything that is under the scheduled district regulations that is being operated as residential use in a business district with their density under the current density allowability should go residential.
See, I don't
Should
think we should
remain
take that away from
Yes.
them.
You know, like.
Because nobody, and this is probably inelegant of me to say, but really someone isn't gonna come in and buy that 1/4 acre parcel for a commercial use, because they're not gonna be able to get real approvals with curbing and parking and everything.
Sure.
But our community members perceive that parcel as having more value because it is listed as commercial.
So.
And I think it doesn't cost the town anything to keep it that way. And our community perceives it as the town hurting them.
So would you agree that vacant land currently in commercial should stay commercial?
And
And
Hang on,
residential-
there's 6 different items here. So you agree the vacant land?
Yes,
You agree pre-existing businesses should stay there?
Yes.
But anything that is potentially resident, currently used as residential,
should just stay that zone that way.
should stay commercial?
Should stay commercial,
Okay.
because they don't get a tax reduction for commercial rates. They don't gain anything by it, but they perceive it as being more valuable because of it.
Yeah, I don't think we get, I don't think the town gains anything from strategic point of view
No,
by changing it.
And-
I do disagree a little bit, maybe, City with where they're going. I mean, anytime, any town sets up zoning, people are gonna perceive it as you're telling them what to
something
do. Well,
away.
yeah, that's the purpose of zoning, to tell you what you can and you can't do. Some things are obvious,
right,
others you can't.
but things
But
like,
where they've been, where it has been perceived and purchased and owned and taxed paid on it for use, like a commercial use, it should not be changed unless there is a matter of public safety, or some severe environmental constraint. And I don't know of any,
yeah,
I don't know of any of those being the case in what they changed.
and what that,
For example, what is the public purpose? What is the danger to someone that's killed being what it is currently,
Right.
business and act? So unless there's a real public need,
Right, so like the town board made a comment that they wanted to see the hamlet expand from Stony Hill Road to skate time,
because they want to put sidewalks.
because they want to have the ability for somebody who lives in the hamlet to be able to walk down to Saunders Hill.
they'll get killed on the
They're
side.
gonna get killed.
Are you gonna put a crosswalk?
I'm not disagreeing with you, I agree, it's just that's their rationale behind it. Nobody's walking across. the hill.
That's not a fraction of putting sidewalks on 209.
I know, that's insane.
So
But-
So,
these are the things that we need to make comments.
Yeah.
But let me continue on that.
Yep.
But you have all these the little dwellings right there, just past the PX. They're all on very small lots
Across from Lucas,
across from Lucas, yeah. Now, if somebody was to come in and say, okay, I wanna put I don't know what the hell they want to put there, go figure. And they bought up 4 of those properties for a nice chunk of change. If we take away that commercial designation from those little houses, we're hypothetically, potentially, possibly, maybe robbing these people
yeah, there's no purpose, if the
of
purpose
what
is
they
to
perceive
create.
as their.
I have that on my list, it says the Ackworth corridor from Lucas to skate time.
All the way to Stone Ridge.
Yeah,
Uh,
because there's commercial beyond that.
Yeah.
if you have residential there, in the middle there.
But
Right.
Like on
but
Airport
it
Road, all
shouldn't
that.
Stay, anything that's residential in that corridor on the 2019 map should stay, but on the 209 corridor, everything that is red on the 2019 map, I
should
feel
stay.
should stay.
Like somebody said in the public, 209 runs from Kingston to Port Jervis, so if there's gonna be any possibility for business, it's that road.
Is
So
that right?
even the undersized lots that are currently residential.
Yes,
Okay.
because nobody's gonna be able to do anything under current laws
That's
unless
fine.
they buy a bunch,
And then you put,
and then they could.
that's fine.
Okay,
For the public purpose in following sidewalks for people, it's like, you know.
let's talk about the hamlet going towards the Granite, on Granite Road.
Currently, the hamlet goes to town hall and a couple of parcels that are larger. What do we feel about that?
So what town wants?
Basically, how big do we think the hamlet should be? My purview, the hamlet should be from 209 to Stony Hill Road on anything that fronts on that road, not necessarily deviating off. I like the idea with the granary project that goes to town hall because they have a rail trail that goes through. But I don't think it should go past town hall.
Right.
I don't think it should go.
I don't think it should.
Oh, yeah. What are the advantages of having?
Right,
The
exactly.
advantages of having a hamlet is to take density down so that you can have more affordable housing, rural housing, future developments.
Isn't that something advantageous to the community? They have more affordable housing or multi.
Yes, and I think that that should be done from 209 to Stony Hill Road.
It's certainly a better location than Route 209.
Right.
However,
My concern is there's some very large.
there's some really large parcels that open us up to some real problems.
Exactly. So I think that,
Especially with hamlet density.
so with the density bonus in the hamlet, that's what the concern is. So in my opinion, those larger lots should be,
Possibly excluded.
or PL, you could make a designation that they would go PL10, but if you thought PL10 was too much, then you could just make them R5.
Can we put a lot size?
What are they zoned
Maximum
currently?
for.
They're
hamlet size?
currently in the hamlet, some of them, which is, in my opinion, a problem,
Yeah, that some of those large properties are
which is a problem.
like.
Exactly.
I'm trying to get off track, but when
Sure.
you say affordable housing, are they talking about affordable housing for new people coming in, affordable housing for my
The-
children?
the county-
affordable housing
the-
for local
There's a
people?
stipulation of what.
The county defines affordable housing as something that's affordable.
It's a,
I'm serious, that's their definition.
30%.
it's an income base.
Right, so
Yeah.
income, there's
It's an
income
income
levels.
base that-
So 30% of your income spent on,
But it's a formula,
On,
the town has a definition of affordable housing.
Yeah, and so does the county.
Which I disagree
I
with.
think that's
agree
all
with
BS.
you. It's based upon HUD numbers.
Being anything.
and if it's,
Income.
you have to go slightly above.
So did you have another comment on that?
Okay.
It's just, station, I just do affordable housing, is not what it's supposed to be, because my kids will never be able to afford a town that their parents live in, and that's here, so.
Right.
And
Well, you know, with affordable housing, you can't limit, I don't think you can, I'll turn to attorney. You can't limit it to existing versus income.
right,
Affordable is affordable, doesn't, you can't say, well, if
Right.
you're coming from outside.
It literally says it's affordable.
Right, but if it's affordable too, people do get pushed out of towns. I've
Sure.
been watching this happen in Rockland, I've been watching it happen in Orange, it's starting to happen in Ulster, and so, you know,
Here.
this whole thing.
It's happening.
So,
Disaster.
what do we think about those large tracts of land on Granite Road?
well, when I look, yeah, but that's.
Well, that's
and
a big expansion.
When I look at the 2019 map, I've got the 2019 town map up
Yep.
on my phone, and I've got the new map
Yep.
on the computer. And when I look at them side by side, they appear to be approximately, except for the addition
How? If you look on the new map here,
of one parcel on the opposite of Scenic Road there.
yep,
It appears to be ostensibly the same, except for the addition of that one parcel,
oh, I'm not disagreeing, I agree that it hasn't changed much,
you know.
but I firmly disagree that it should ever even be in that district.
I don't think it should be in that district either.
Right, so if you look at the map here, you'll see, I'm on the last page, the historic overlay, just to use the map as a question in the bottom where the Ackford Hamlet is expanded.
Mhm.
You'll see on the bottom left corner in brown, that's the beginning of Town Hall property.
Yep,
In my opinion, everything across the street from that, across Granite Road, should not be in
should
there.
not be in.
Right. Because if you are at the granary and you are utilizing the granary for its new function, you are in the hamlet utilizing a sidewalk that takes you to Town Hall.
Right.
After Town Hall, there's nothing else.
Right,
So that should be reduced to, now here's the question. It can't go to the historic district, because then that density bonus really increases. But it can go to R5 or PL10. But I don't know how you want to think of it.
Well, what's the contiguous property zone there?
That's the problem. They're all contiguously zoned as the hamlet. The yellow is what the low density residential, which would be R1 or R2, but that is too low for a 80 to 100 acre property. Susceptibility would be too great. So I think that whole bubble, again, I'm looking at this map here on the bottom, I'm right here in this big,
So you're
I mean,
recommending
even
what
R2
what
would
is
be more.
today should be changed,
absolutely.
because I think what they did on this map.
Yep.
It didn't change much.
It did not, that's correct.
No, it didn't, because
So you're
It's
saying
currently
you
in.
want to change back to.
Yeah.
R1 10.
And I'm okay with either, I just, on an 80 acre parcel today in a Hamlet district, your susceptibility for a condo could be 165 units.
but then you also
Density
have to,
bonus.
you have to.
Not saying it's realistic because of the
It's
topography,
not-
but
it's not realistic.
there's,
But the.
So what if it was 165 units of affordable housing, quote unquote, as defined by income levels or that, you wouldn't want that as a potential senior facility, for example?
then it should go business district.
You want to make this business?
No, I'm saying if you wanted a senior facility, that would be a business district.
No, I mean, a senior facility, senior living facility, not an old age home.
I mean, that's a business, that's a business.
All right, let me change.
I'm with you though, I understand.
Affordable housing.
In my
As defined by
opinion,
income
that
level.
those lots should be, between 8 and 16 units, 8 and 16 lots of large tracts of land for housing, whether it be upscale housing, low housing, residential housing, whatever it be. It should be housing that is accessible to the hamlet, but not in the hamlet district. That's how I see it.
So I don't like the fact that it's going to Hamlet.
Agreed. Oh, no, it's in the hamlet.
It's in the hamlet.
It's- Right, it needs to come out of the hamlet.
So I would
Well, really-
recommend, and it would be logical to recommend that it either be R1 or R2.
Well, R1, it gives you the same thing as
Right,
hamlet.
R1.
That's,
Well, it's not quite the same thing. as
Because if you
Hamlet,
say
because
something
you
like
get density.
R5, essentially you're plopping down.
see, I think that area is prime for a conservation zone. 80 acres, it's very hilly, it's topography. I would like to, I think that the zoning density bonus that you could possibly apply for is a good spot for that 80
Well,
acres.
what do we suggest for them that it?
But then it would need to be R5.
Yeah.
Just, that's my opinion. That, all
Well,
those tracks,
conservation easement could be done on any zone,
that's correct.
1, 2.
But in a 2, your density bonus is still there. So,
It's there already, so you would probably only do that if there was extreme topography issues.
so in that property, again, the answer to the question is what do you guys want to see there in the future? And then we work backwards into what that zoning district's gonna be.
At one point in time, we had talked about it, so it allows for too much housing.
Correct.
But that is what it is today. You have to
But you
I
have to
think,
have,
a really convincing reason to change it.
Which I don't have.
I don't know.
yeah.
I just know that I don't want to see that kind of housing. Perfect.
Well,
You
I mean,
do
but
have the
if- but-
facility.
but-
Well, yeah, you'd have to have town water and,
However, if you do have to have high density housing, it's a better area than putting it onto a line.
which is currently proposed to go to the Hamlet district.
I'd also just warn that, given the current climate, if you significantly reduce available density, my guess is that the county is going to,
Is gonna be.
well, but you'll get negative comments from probably planning, because affordable housing, I mean, I
That's what
work
they
for the
want.
legislature up in Kingston, and these things come up all the time. Affordable housing is almost like,
The biggest thing.
it's a very, very big concern, let's put it that way. And, you knock something, I don't know what the zoning districts are that you're referring to, but if you knock something down from, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6 units per acre, it's a hamlet district down to, I think R2 is 2 acres
2
per
acres.
unit.
Yep.
So you're cutting density there by something like 10 times. My guess is you're gonna get.
It's not
You're
gonna
gonna get-
fly.
We still can make a
and
recommendation.
Remember, you're gonna deal with that in seeker. And in this case, because you're now dealing with the humanistic type of impact as opposed to ecological, that measure of reducing density is going to come up with an affordable housing context, and you're gonna have troubles in seeker, and you're gonna have troubles with the county, and I'm just telling you that if you really wanna do it, think about it, but my guess is you're gonna get a lot of pushback.
So Dave, you
from
did,
council.
you did review of our code and this, and you made some comments. Do you share,
Yeah,
care to share
what
on
do you
those?
think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, I didn't luck with the maps.
Of course, understood.
I don't, I'm aware of the public hearing outcome. If you ever change zoning on anybody on their property, you're gonna get them come yell at you.
Right.
It's been my experience,
It's reality.
wherever you are in the world. Because there's some expectation, but I did go through some of the stuff quick. If Mike, Mark's question, want to do that now?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Want me to just generalize?
Yeah, just quick synopsis.
Okay. So ignoring the maps, which I'm not the person to do, I agree with what David just said. I also agree this affordability issue, it's extremely hot. It's a multi-decade long problem. It's getting nothing but worse. And if these zoning changes are gonna make it harder for people to afford to live here, you're gonna get some pushback, and rightly so. So, but I don't have a measure of whether that's doing this or not. I think the overlay zones and what they did are good. I do like the illustrations that were added to the code. I don't know if you noted, but there's much more illustrative illustrations on what's right and what's not right. With, for example, signage, that's good stuff. You should be proud of the fact you're probably gonna be the only zoning code in America that's got a picture of a gnome in its code, but it proceeds as proposed. I focus mostly on the definitions, because it's where you seem to have some issues. Even in my whatever half-year experience helping you out. The non-conforming uses for unknown reasons have its own set of definitions. I just suggest you carry those over to the other definitions. So you have one definition section to avoid any confusion. You've got a mess with these agricultural uses. I don't know why whoever's writing, I'm not involved in writing this, but whoever's writing has this inherent need to write unique definitions about different uses that I've never seen before, including most of the agricultural ones. So the consistent recommendation, which we've experienced with Hudson Valley Seed, right, is the state defines farm operation. By the way, it has nothing to do with being in an agricultural district. So I would recommend you remove that condition that that agriculture uses are connected to a farm district. The certified state and county, because the state rules don't connect it to a district, and that's another discussion. But so some of my comments are related to where there's Helena will be familiar with this, where there's a clear state definition of the use or the term. Why muck with it? Because most decent sized applications are probably going to require a town and some state approval. So then you have the conflict potentially about is it a farm? Is it an agriculture? Is it a farm district? Is it? I'll just use the consistency. So I made some specific examples I can set.
Yeah,
I can give that to you. Send it to you, right, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. I do know there's a lot about camps. I've read about camps. I'm familiar with the camp phenomena, but I don't know the specifics in your case about why there's all of a sudden going to be 7 different definitions of camps and some brand new. It's one of the most significant changes in there are related to camps. So you might want to look and see if you're supportive of the new standards, definitions and standards for camps. There are a number of definitions. I'll use electric charging stations, for example. There seems to be this need to define every type of electrical charging station. I'm not quite, having just purchased a plug-in vehicle, it's having electrical engineers. I'm the only male in my family is not an electrical engineer. The technology's changing every day. It's probably problematic to get into these technical definitions when a year from now it might be different. So that's a caution. There's a definition of land disturbance. It relates to the term land preparation, which to me, preparation implies that there's a next step. I would suggest, since it's a key feature of your reviews, is it land disturbance and you have standards associated with that, that definition in particular be adjusted to something much more scientific and generic in nature, and I gave an example. There's two definitions proposed for historic buildings. One's a historic building and structure, the other is certified historic. I don't know what the difference is.
It has a monument or a land outside where it'll have a placard
Right.
that names it as a
But
part of the
typically,
historic preservation.
there's also a connection which makes sense to being eligible or listed on the National Register
Yep.
of Historic Places. But commonly, when you're considering those, there's also a state register that's equally as valuable. And you have a track record of this, the local commission, right?
The historic
So you
preservation.
might want to factor that into these definitions. I got some others. I do know, for example, there's a definition, who knows why, for town engineer, consultant, or planner, which includes which describes them as employees. And last time I checked,
That's a
we
definition.
aren't employees.
That's because in the event they were going to hire a town planner as an employee.
Okay.
Which has been discussed.
Well, if I'm an employee, I guess I should talk about
Health benefits?
health. No. As a retired, I'm in the state retirement system, so health benefits are not an issue, Alina. And then the parking standards, I did like the fact that you're requiring some charging stations with parking, basic parking requirements. I do note for everybody on the planning board, which you may want to discuss, there is some relaxation of the parking number of spaces required, which in my experience makes sense because your code and many codes require way more spaces than are necessary in that case. So it's a
We've
modest,
granted how many waivers in the past on that?
it's a modest reduction, but if you want to, in your homework assignment, take a look at that as well to see if you're comfortable with the parking standard relaxation that's being
I
proposed.
thought that was because we wind up doing.
We're
that.
giving a waiver anyway. Most of the time.
And that was the essence of it.
You know, as long as you're talking about definitions, there's still confusion in definitions between streets and roads. Some contradictions with how the state defines it, how the state fire code defines it, and we
Right.
define it. So, and they define differently in the street, in the S section for streets and in the R section for roads. So they need to define the difference between the private connector, I forget all the terms, private connector. There's like 4 or 5 different terms used in the fire code. And they're different there as they are in park code, so they just continue to clean that up. And it came up in Nadine's project.
Yep.
20 feet.
18. Anything else?
He made me.
You're just going back to, you're just going back.
Yes,
I don't want the extension.
Yep, that's more on my list.
But I don't know. I don't know if we should attempt to decrease that downward density as it exists. There are other controlling factors that might allow us to adjust that, either the topography, the presence of wetlands, the absence of water, although there is an aquifer there. You know, you talk about affordable housing just as a general comment. Affordable housing doesn't, significant affordable housing doesn't work unless you have water and septic.
Correct.
I mean, you can do a little bit here, a little bit there, but unless you have
Facilities, yep.
And that is an area where you could put in a septic facility and you do have water because of the aquifer, so.
That
Well,
makes-
towns are,
Makes you even more susceptible.
the simplest step for affordable housing in towns do is liberalize the ability to do accessory dwelling units. That's what's happening mostly.
I think
In most of the
They're even
towns
giving
around.
grants.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for actual occupants, right?
Correct.
You can get a grant, but if you make I'm working with a town that's gonna make accessory dwelling units essentially a building permit. They're gonna have standards, but you don't have to go to a discretionary board to put an accessory unit on your property. It's a problem. I mean, I can't underestimate the statistical reality of the affordability problem. I mean, as a former regional planner, now retired, this was true 30 years ago. We were way behind on available units for the population that's here, and it's just gotten worse every year. So, but accessory dwelling units seem to be, particularly for towns like this, the more sensible, easy step that, where you don't have to get caught up in sewer and water. And you can have some reasonable standards and it doesn't change the neighborhood. It's, you know, that's been the Gardner, for example, is about to do that.
Benefits and the ADU. The only other thing I'd like to bring up really is PL10.
Yep.
I, again, listened to the meeting and people are very upset about PL10. PL10 is taking away people's land use rights. Yes, they can still put a residence on it, but we have a lot of older, larger parcels that belong to older families that in town, and some young people that have bought large parcels that may want to do something with it down the road. And to arbitrarily throw these people into 10-acre zoning. And even some parcels that are less than 10 acres have been thrown into it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think if the town wants to pursue and keep PL10 as part of our zoning, then maybe we should take a different tack. And I'm just gonna come back around on myself again and say one of our board members felt that it was necessary to send out letters to everyone whose zoning was going to be changed, even though the town doesn't have to do that. And I think that was an awesome thing that he made happen. Because it helped make people aware of the fact that their zoning was about to change, instead of having the town just do what the hell ever they wanted.
Yeah.
And sweep it under the rug. Yes, it makes for a living hell for all the rest of us,
It's
but,
reality.
yeah, but it shouldn't be.
I'm saying I'm glad that he made that decision because it's reality that people need to know what you can do with your life.
Our landlords, everybody that owns property here, we're our own landlords. And we need to treat everyone well and everyone fairly. And when a change like this, something like PL10 comes off, I don't think it should be pushed on people. I think they should be given a choice. They can agree to be PL10, or they can say, nope, I want to stay R5 or R3.
Yeah, so I
whatever
thought about that
else.
idea, but in the event you agreed to going to PL10, here's an example. Okay, I'm in an R5 district right now. I got 6 lots that are around me that are all R5, no issues. I'm the guy in the middle who says, you know what? I own 50 acres, make it PL10, and I'm never gonna do anything with it anyway.
Yeah.
I just manufactured a spot zone. Because now I have 3 on the left, me, and 2 on the right, I'm considered
Good,
spot
then
zone.
let's kill PL10.
Okay, so I'm saying that's a valid answer, but the opt-in / opt-out process
Okay.
would automatically potentially create a spot zone.
But once you opt in, you can't opt out.
Exactly.
There's no give back.
So if we want to see PL10 gone, which is completely a valid option, R5 would be our largest zoning district, right? Which
Yeah.
that's what it is
Oh,
currently.
no, you've gotta, yeah.
R5 is 5 acres.
R5 is currently our
Yeah.
largest.
No, never mind, I'm wrong.
So if you're in an R5 district currently, and you say, yeah, I want to go to PL10, which if you want, that's your prerogative, that's fine. You would create spot zones, so that would be against our town, so that wouldn't work.
Okay.
But I think potentially there should be some sort of a zoning district or a designation that maybe is not acreage based. It's land based. So like if there's a piece of property that you want to preserve, state land, OSI, Mohawk, Winnewaska, all those things in our zoning district, maybe it should just be preserved property, not a number designated to it. And make it as a schedule of district regulations on what you can and can't use there.
If you preserve it forever, maybe somebody doesn't want.
Well, that you have that ability. You currently have that ability. Right now, you could have a 50-acre parcel, put it in the state forestry program, and you're
it's
preserving it.
preserved forever.
Right, you have the ability to do that today.
Or you can sell
Right, so, exactly, so why not have the,
Why impose it on?
and why should it be a number? Don't make it an acreage base, because now you're undersized lots, like you said, the 7 acres and the 4 acre parcels that are in PL 10.
But it's-
Now you just really restricted them, just make it a preserved district. And have the town board
and
assign a.
still be whatever their zoning is.
Exactly,
That's fine too.
that solves the
But
problem.
to,
That's all.
but to impose the 10 acre zoning.
Right, so the 10 acre zoning is, throw that out the window, you have R5 as your highest designation. If you wanna be in a preserved district, not with a number associated with it based on acreage, you can preserve your property.
Mhm.
You might have 10 acres that you wanna be preserved and you don't ever wanna build on it, fine.
Be interested in knowing, and I don't know their rationale. Why did they, and which parcels wound up being,
According to what I was told, the PL 10 designation was created for state land, wetland, land that is exceptionally high topography, mountainous terrain, Upper Cherrytown Road, Minnewaska, things that are very, very steep, or things that are unbuildable, where they didn't want to see housing at all.
so
And land.
some of that is taken,
Right, something that abuts state land,
Some of
yes.
you know, state land or preserved land, I can see it. If it's privately owned, isn't that taken care of by our regulations around building on steep slopes? We have a prohibition against certain
Not-
slopes.
Correct.
Or if it's wetlands, you can't build in it, so instead what you have to
But a
move
lot
it,
of these
you have to move
properties.
the house, to where there's no wetlands.
Where
So
it's dry.
some of that makes sense.
Sure. So like currently,
So for us to say that no PL 10 is as bad as saying.
I'm
let's
not
just do
saying
PL
necessarily no PL 10. I'm throwing the whole idea of the zoning district out the window of PL 10. Just, in my opinion, eliminate it, but make a preserved district that's not associated with an acreage size.
How do you do it then? I don't understand how you would.
I want to be voluntarily, I want my land to be preserved.
You could do that.
But that's spot zoning, Mark.
No, not that situation, because you would be opting in,
Well,
but
that's
your-
what I'm saying.
but your zoning district would be R5.
You would still be in
Okay.
our.
You'd still be in an R5 district, but you could state, I want to opt in as it being preserved property. Now, like the neighboring property that is next to me, 325 acres, that abuts state land, that land is gonna go to PL 10. That's great, there's nothing wrong with that. But under PL 10, they can still fit 32 houses around that property. It's not wet, it's not steep, you can do it.
Yes.
That's a problem in my opinion. Currently, it's R5. So now you even have the greater density, so, but that person who owns that property wants it to be preserved. They don't ever wanna do anything with that property.
Well, they.
Great, do whatever you're gonna do, but it shouldn't be based on a number of acres.
But what about R5? Because R5, now they can. make
Right, but if they
it-
have the ability to make in a preservation district,
But it still comes back to land use rights. And you.
land use rights, in my
and the
opinion,
landlord-
gives you the ability to opt in.
Right, and the
or opt out.
landlord restricting the land use rights that come with your property.
Yep.
When you buy them.
Well, the preserved land definition, before I looked at the map,
Mhm.
I had assumed would have been the state forest lands.
That's what I
Minnewaska State Park. I don't know what, do you have any preserved land?
Yeah, so
Preserve,
yeah,
And a
state,
lot of these are
the
private
stuff that's
properties.
permanently protected by larger institutions, it's,
conservancies,
yeah.
Roundup Land Association.
Well, I mean, it's the big. hunks of
OSI.
land- The big hunks of land to the far east and west, right? On the ridge and.
Yeah, that's Minnewaska, Mohawk,
and
OSI.
State forest lands to the west, right?
Correct.
That's what I assumed. I don't know.
But there are individual landowners who receive PL 10
I can't
notifications.
rationalize
Thank you, thank you.
Right, anybody over there went to that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
You're gonna have it limited by the limits of the land,
correct.
the slope of the land, whether it's wet or not, and that's.
Will determine what you can do and can't.
And that's what we deal with.
And that's what
Correct.
the committee exists for.
If they want
Exactly.
to throw additional statements that are designated as,
Wetlands,
Right.
go ahead and do it. Maybe,
sure.
Somebody who's got 5 and they all of a sudden want to.
All right, that's enough for now. I will caution everybody, we do have a very large agenda for next meeting, so be prepared.
Large, 4 pages long.
3. but most of them are public hearing and decisions because we have a lot of things to put on. So motion to adjourn, somebody?
Oh, wait.
Oh,
You wanted
or
to
not.
set, you wanted to set the notion.
Oh, yes, Dave. We would like to, go under advisement for some training in the next 3 months with new seeker laws, with you and Emily.
Okay.
We also want to talk, we'll do those workshops, but we also want to talk about, our seeker process that needs to be revised, revisited, and recorrected.
Yeah.
And, the new wetland, national wetland designation that came out, that Emily did a presentation on. If she can do that, right?
Changes being made on at today's level.
Emily does presentations on both seeker and wetlands, so I can certainly advise on wetlands. She knows, I mean, on seeker, she knows the wetland stuff back and forwards. Either one of us can talk about seeker, either a presentation, or we can just have a meeting or whatever.
I think the seeker one is, we need to continue to know more
Yeah.
about it, but specifically, we've had general discussions about, we're doing it in the wrong
Process.
way.
Okay,
So we'd like to know, well, is there a better way of doing it?
yeah. Well, there are some things that we do wrong, sort of in terms of just habit and things that I've noticed, and then there are things that just pop up on individual cases. The habit, the stuff that, sort of the general stuff, we can certainly talk about in some detail. Other stuff's gonna pop up on individual cases, but if you guys have any questions, I think a Q&A and just thinking.
Now, the habit stuff where, you know, the timing when we do seeker,
For when, where, or how we should.
how we
Yeah.
declare things to be.
Yeah, I'll be, I mean, you want a special meet,
We're gonna do a workshop for that.
so it'd be like a 2-hour discussion?
Correct.
Yeah.
Maybe like February, March.
I can
something like that.
prepare probably half an hour, 45 minutes worth of topics, and we have Q&A probably less than another hour.
Give me a motion, somebody.
I make a motion.
What time is it? 8:54, Zach and Cindy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Abstentions? Go home. See you next month.
On Monday, that's.